answer for me.
Yeah.
Halloween. Do you guys do Halloween?
Actually, it's starting to become more popular. It's something that Australians never used to do because it's like it's an American thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's actually becoming like even in our local area, we're in a small town here, and we start to get a couple of kids coming around each year, and we keep the front door locked and pretend we're not home.
Well, it's spring, so you just keep the front door locked and throw bees
Yeah.
or whatever
Is it?
mega bees you have in Australia out the window.
Because it's only quite it is getting more popular each year. Like you're starting to see it in the shops and that, but obviously it's still a place where if you don't have to provide that, like the lollies and all that sort of stuff, and the kids know it, so they'll knock on your door and they sort of ask first and that. But yeah, it is becoming more popular, but I'm not sure if it'll ever fully take off like it is in the US. It may, maybe 10 years time it might.
Good old fashioned American capitalism is why Halloween is as huge as it is. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no way to like really hide that. There are, like sort of fanciful origin stories. You've got like the take on it being Ireland with Jack of the Wills and jack o' lanterns and so on and so forth. Sam Hain night, right? There's actually also a really fascinating story about it. It kind of parallels the Christmas story, which is it really was just something
yeah,
to stop kids from being hooligans.
yeah,
So,
yeah. The Americans really made the Christmas story their own, didn't they?
yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Santa
Yeah.
Claus and everything.
Well, it's
So,
yeah. I mean, it's Sinterklaas or any of the other variants of. Yeah. It's crazy. It's.
yeah,
I mean, that's that I've said elsewhere that I think America's greatest export is the American image, and that's just because we're so good at like cultural sort of uh, like osmosis,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, everyone looks up to America, tries to be like them in
not,
a lot of facets of life, but not everything.
I think that'll be on the ebb tide a little bit now that
Yeah,
our
yeah,
country.
yeah.
but I digress. What's up? We're here to talk Age of Sigmar, not geopolitics and holidays. I am of course the magical Mr. Mephisto. This is episode 70 of RantCast. Tonight we're going to be talking Nighthaunt during Meph's merry month of death. It is the best month. It is October. I'm joined tonight by many of you know him as the Mayor, Mat Tyrrell. He is an accomplished death player and one of the hugest proponents of Nighthaunt in the entire world. How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, good man. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the talking up. Yeah, no, it's I've been playing Death now for pretty much since AOS started, and I've loved every facet of Death. But yeah, Nighthaunt since probably CanCon at the start of the year, I've really jumped back on Nighthaunt. They're actually become one of the better armies in the current meta. I feel they've got very good tools
I'd agree with you.
to counter a lot of the other top armies. We still struggle against like the flamer heavy Zinch lists, maybe Seraphon a bit too, but all the other lists like LRL, OBR, and all that, they're very good counters to them. Just all the mortal wound and the high bravery and stuff like that.
Well, so they struggle against the S tier armies right now, like the literal best of the best that
Yeah,
everyone else is struggling with. So I don't even hold that against them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
I
even still, like it is a struggle, but it's still not unwinnable. Like if you can get, depending on who takes first turn against, say, a Zinch army, if they take first turn and you get a double turn into them with the Wave of Terror, Underworlds, you can win the game quite easily, getting
right.
into their flamers or whatever they've got. Um, yeah,
Right.
but it just depends on, like, I think Seraphon's actually an easier game for us than it is against Zinch. Zinch is one that I really struggle against, to be honest.
What do you think the difference is? Why do you think that?
Um, well, I think Seraphon. I think one of their strengths is their casting and their mortal wound output at range. But obviously, Nighthaunt being a death army, the mortal wounds aren't a huge factor. And the fact that we can just deep strike in and get within 9 inches or whatever, and get into their fluffy stuff, their heroes or whatever, and even their shooting stuff you can get into quite easily. Skinks, just once you get into them, they pop.
Yeah.
Even though they can run away from you with that underworld, you can get to them quite easily. So I think out of the two, Seraphon and Zinch, I think Zinch is still the harder matchup for us.
Okay.
I think it's probably more the flamer spam, the 18-inch shooting with their 9-inch move, and the D3 damage is what really pumps through us.
Right.
I know we ignore the rend, but once you fail that one save, it's D3 damage each time. It just
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the one of my cursory reads on Nighthaunt, and I think this has never really changed, is for wanting like a lot of its heroes as much as it does. Like, this is an army that could like easily go 6 heroes on a list, and that's real one of those like kind of, it's like Khorne and Nighthaunt are two armies that are like really at the forefront of like, I want 6 heroes.
Yeah.
They seem to pop pretty easy. Like, unrendable and a 6-up mortal wound save sometimes just isn't enough for the amount of ranged output that is in Age of Sigmar right now. And I think that's one of the...
for sure.
But unlike, say, Khorne, you do have some counterplay, and I think that's one of the things that makes the army super relevant, because, like, you can stash some models off the table with that, from Underworlds they come.
And keep them safe. Yeah. And also, we do have a lot of access to healing as well. So, unlike other armies like Khorne and that, where once you've taken your wounds, that's it, Nighthaunt can actually heal up back to full quite easily and quite quickly. So unless they fully kill that hero, they're going to struggle to kill them. Even like a Spirit Torment, for example, he's only 5 wounds, but he's a 4-up save. So, if you're not doing mortal wounds, you're just doing shooting, you're still having to do at least 10 wounds. Well, plus death save, so maybe 11 or 12 wounds, which is quite a big investment. That's a lot of shooting to get through 10 or 11 wounds, get through onto a model sort of thing before they take their saves.
What I would call a 100-point idiot, like those just random buff heroes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, how would you? I have like a couple like sort of like the title like headline of this army. If you drove past and saw a marquee on a theater, I would say Nighthaunt is a finesse horde army. How do you characterize Nighthaunt? Like, what are your findings? And you've certainly played these a lot longer, a lot more in depth than I have.
Yeah. Look, you can play them as horde armies, and I have in the past with Chain Ras, etc. But I've actually been finding I'm having a lot more success with almost the MSU style list.
Okay.
And having lots of threats as well. So I always like to have those bigger. I don't like to have a big point sink model like unit in my armies, so I don't like to have
the black coach is just jettisoned right out from the list.
Yeah. No. Well, black coach, he's only 220 points, so to me that's not a big investment.
Okay.
I mean, like, how some people take a 500-point unit, like they're taking whatever it is, half guard or whatever it is.
You'd be taking 360 grave guard or something like that. Like,
yeah. So I don't normally like to do that. I like to split my threats up. So, which is really good with the underworlds. So, like I in lists I've had before, I've had a Mongol, I've had a Black Coach, I've had Kurdos, Lady Olander. Then you've got, I've got my 9 Spirit Hosts. Each unit I take is a threat in its own, and it just means your opponent doesn't have that one target to target. They can't just go, well, I'm going to put all my debuffs on that one unit, and then his army's like I'm going to win this game now. Whereas they got to try and decide which unit they pick, which unit they target, and using the underworlds is really good for that. Like, you can drop down a Mongol and Kurdos behind their enemy lines, and then you've got your 9 Spirit Hosts or Black Coach up the board. Your opponent sort of then has to decide: do I go back and deal with this Mongol in my back lines in my turn, or do I push forward to try and score points and take out the threats in front of me? Either way, I think whatever their decision is there, it's sort of a bad choice for them. If they go backwards, they're not scoring points.
Right.
And they're still going to get hit from the front by your Black Coach or whatever. But if they do push forward, then you've got your Mongol and Kurdos or whatever coming in from behind, killing heroes or units. So it's all about your movement tactics with Nighthaunt. You want to be splitting your army's focus around the board, and a lot of opponents' armies don't deal with that well.
My
They need.
my bone
Yeah,
daddies would struggle with that. I can
yeah,
I can
exactly.
threaten 2 points really strong.
Yeah,
More if my catapults stay up, but like with Nighthaunt has the answer to my catapults. They're
yeah. You just got to get in combat with them, and
Yep, just within that 6 inches, like
yeah,
within 3 inches to lock them in combat, so they can't target anything with shooting. And it's like 10 chain rasps will do that. They'll just pop
yeah.
up out of the underworld and just be like, "Oh, you're stuck."
And it's 80 points, like it. And even if you kill a couple of them, they're not running to battle shock.
Yeah.
So it's look 80. I love my 10 man units of chain rasps. And the other thing is too, a lot of people get stuck with armies wanting to be a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop army.
Glad you brought this up. I was going to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Look, Nighthaunt really excel at not caring. Like honestly, it doesn't matter. I like to take as many drops as possible. To be honest, I was running a list only a couple of weeks ago. It had 15 or 16 drops. It was it was just heaps. I think I had like 7 units of 10 chain rasps just to drop around the board. As dumb as it sounds, it's actually quite good. It's hard to deal with.
Well, it's the it really is like the galaxy brain move. This is something I found really like awesome with Beast of Chaos. I could be 15 drops no problem. The rub with Beast of Chaos is like your list can be 15 or 2 drops in the same list because their battalions are so generous. But still, like I found most games going for the maximum drops because I wanted maximum information for my opponent, and anything I truly worried about, I could stash sort of in ambush or off the table and be like, this isn't going to be a target priority, even if you take that first turn and try to shoot me off. Usually what ends up happening is they seed first turn, and Nighthaunt is kind of just fine with, like, if you don't get that double, like, I'm going to bring the pain.
That's right. Like, it honestly doesn't bother me if I go first or second. Either way, I'll make the most of it. If I'm going first, I'm using the Underworld straight up. I'm getting into their army, hitting them before they get command points, so they're taking battle shocks. All that sort of stuff. So if you're given first turn, I don't care. If I'm given second turn, there's a good chance of that double turn then. And if Nighthaunt get a double turn, it can be really good. Like a lot of people think Nighthaunt are pillow-fisted, whatever, but they can wipe armies. I only just played a game 2 nights ago against City's army, and we called it at the end of my turn 2, which was the top of turn 2. So... it can be, if especially armies that alpha strike you and they take first turn, if they get into your lines first turn, you can normally kill most of their stuff in return if you set up your screens right. And then you're pushing forward in your first turn, hitting some other stuff, and then if you get the priority again, you're in their main lines, and it can be really bad for them.
Right. So real quick, we got Chat Gang here showing up. Ziggy asking how's it going. Obviously going great, Ziggy. Thanks for showing up here. So question for Team Death: how likely are we to see new vampire? Oh, come on. Well, how likely are we to see new vampires? I would put the likelihood at 100% eventually on a long enough timeline. 100%. Woo! The mayor says G dead. Chat Gang pops off, and he spent 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with. And he asked, and this must be an inside joke, how awesome is Kevin?
Yes, Kevin. We'll talk about Kevin. We'll talk about him now.
Where's Kevin fit in? Kevin is an inside joke. Talk about Kevin now. How awesome is Kevin?
Right. Kevin's like one of my favorite models, and makes this army so much fun. So a few months ago, I found this build. I was building my list, and I found a build that worked really well. So it's a Khan Wraith. So Khan Wraith's for 60 points. Pretty mediocre unit normally. Doesn't do a hell of a lot. But
I've had a Cairn Wraith with a Sword of Judgment. Sword of Judgment still did nothing wrong. I've had a Cairn Wraith with a Sword of Judgment wipe out some just absurd shit.
So I've been running him with the equivalent, which is the Shadow Edge Blade, which is it's a Nighthaunt artifact, obviously. So every 6 to hit does D3 mortal wounds. He's got 3 attacks, and his own weapon on a 6 to hit does 2 mortal wounds. So any 6 to hit is 2 plus D3 mortal wounds. I charged him into a unit of wardens, LRL wardens, into a unit of 20. I got the 10-inch charge, but I killed 14 of them. The 60-point hero killed 180 points worth of models or something stupid.
And this isn't hero reliant for the D3, right? On your
So you don't like.
Because Sword of Judgment says against a hero or monster, then you can get.
This is against anything. Yeah,
anything. That D3 is against any. I would posit it is better than Sword of Judgment because of that.
Yeah. So it's just 6 to hit is D3 mortal wounds. That's all.
No, D3 plus 2.
Oh yeah, plus his own 2. Yeah. So
yeah, this is tech.
And against units, he's re-rolling hit rolls because
he reaps.
He's got the reap like corn. Yeah, so he can do a maximum of 15 mortal wounds from a 60-point hero. And then I played another game the other night against the Giants, the Sons of Behemoth. He charged into the Kraken and he survived 3 rounds of combat. I had a Mongol close by. He just couldn't kill him, and I did 15 mortal wounds or 16 mortal wounds to that giant over a couple of rounds of combat.
Just like points well spent.
Yeah. He was the actual one that ended up finishing off the giant. Like I had a Mongol there as well, and I kept charging Harridans into this giant to kill it. But he was the one that actually finished him off. So this little 60-point hero killed this massive giant. it was really good. So before a game, I'll bring him to the table and I'll talk about what he can do. I'm like, this is Khanray, 60-point hero. He can do 15 mortal wounds, and people just look at you like, what? They're like, hang on a sec. And I'm like, yeah. And if I get the 10-inch charge, he gets to do it twice. And then in the game, like you put it. I always put him in the underworlds just for the theater of it all. And
right.
And I'm like, Kevin's coming. Kevin's coming. And I'll put him down, and then it comes to the charge phase. I need a 9-inch charge, and I would just get behind it. I talk it right up, like this is gonna hurt. Roll it, and I roll like a 3 or something, and then I'm like, nah, I'm spending a command point. I'm using it. So then I roll again, and you get that 10-inch charge, and the look on your opponent's face is just priceless.
Oh yeah.
But you can actually, if you want to take him as your general, you can give him Hatred of the Living, so he rerolls hit rolls against anything that's not dead. So he can actually become a really good hero sniper. So if you just charge into a hero, he's still getting that reroll to hit.
He flies too, as I recall. It's been a while since
I've looked. Yeah. All Nighthaunt flies. So so you can clear screens if you get in the charge.
Well, I mean, if you're getting a 10-inch charge, you're probably clearing the screen, and he's got a small enough base. He's getting. I played even pre-LON Tome, I was running a lot of Nagash, which meant I ran a lot of Banshees and Karen Wraiths just to have an extra hero and stuff. So the value of having a 60-point hero is just it's not lost on me. There's enough force multiplication in the Nighthaunt Battle Tome that really makes the Karen Wraith kind of like a sleeper hit, I think. I'm happy you brought it. I didn't know what Kevin was, but I'm super happy this is where this went.
60 points is, even if he dies without doing anything, it's just the thought that you put in your opponent's head too. Like, your opponent knows there's this model that can do 15 mortal wounds to stuff on the board. Like, it's just...
That mind game.
It just gets in your opponent's head. Yeah, exactly. And then I also, in the Shrieker host, I've been taking Karen, his wife. She's a screaming banshee.
Yep. So it's Karen and Kevin asking to see the manager of the opponent's army.
Exactly. Yeah.
So any secret tech with Karen you found, or just for the novelty of it? No, just
she's there. She's just the battalion tax for Shrieker host. She's alright. Like
she can scream mortal wounds sometimes, right?
Yeah, and look, it stacks with the Nighthaunt neg 1 at bravery, so. Those even the Giants the other night, they're a bravery 6 then. So anything over a 6, you're doing mortal wounds. So on average, you're doing 2 or 3. You can spike the dice, obviously, but yeah, look, she's only there for the battalion tax, a death save, aura, and that scream every now and then if you need it.
I mean, this is kind of jumping ahead of my plot, but hey, it wouldn't be a rank cast without it. Battalions. Do you find
Yep.
battalions to be a strength in Nighthaunt? Because you mentioned now taking the battalion.
Yeah.
Battalions are one of those kind of hit or miss things. I think in battle tomes. Some battle tomes like
Yes.
have great battalions. Some of them have like meh. Some of them have none. I mean,
Yeah.
Cities of Sigmar has some, but kind of only a name only, and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about
So,
Nighthaunt battalions? Are they auto-includes? Are they something you really find yourself gravitating towards because you want that extra artifact and command point? Rerolling charges is a big deal. Like, where do you come down on battalions for Nighthaunt? And then I'm going to catch up on chat.
so yeah, you're right. Yeah, my personal view on battalions with Nighthaunt is they're not necessary. The list I took to CanCon didn't have one. I went 5-1 at CanCon with Nighthaunt at the start of the year, and I didn't have a battalion. It's battalions in Nighthaunt too.
Humble brag.
Yeah. A lot of people would throw a battalion in just for the sake of having lower drops, and with Nighthaunt, as I said earlier, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, Galaxy Brain doesn't care about drops.
No, and it's the fact that people just will also just throw a battalion in just because you really need to build your list around these battalions. They're battalions that if you don't build around that battalion, it's not going to work. Like if you're going well,
I always like Death Riders, and
yeah,
some people take Death.
Like
Go ahead.
For example, the Shroud Guard with the Blade Geist, you really want to be taking like big units of Blade Geist if you want to be taking Shroud Guard. Otherwise, if like people will just take 2 units of 5 Blade Geists, it's just well, what's the point? Why are you paying spending these points on a battalion if you're really not benefiting from it? But then like with the new White Dwarf battalions, people are
which they're fine now. Everybody, mission accomplished.
But they're taking the mega battalion in that, so you've got like 3 battalions or whatever it is, and you're spending like 200-300 points just on battalions, and I think, well, to me that's a waste of points. I think it's too much. I think Nighthaunt, you really should only be taking 1 battalion, because it's just so many points. You don't need the extra CP from another battalion. You don't need the less drops. You don't need 3 artifacts. Like, I don't feel it's necessary.
Well, that third artifact is often more cute than good. There's sometimes out there like where you getting too clever with what you're trying to do, and I think that Nighthaunt is an army where like I think it plays very cagey, and you can't really afford any wasted movement in getting it all to come together. And I think that's where I say finesse. Maybe I was misleading with Horde because, like you've said, you've discovered more MSU is really where this thing shines. But it's very much a finesse army with a bunch of models on the table, and that's I think that's something that like people need to realize about this army. Even with letting your opponent outdrop you, you're going to have all of the information for that battle now. You know.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And if you can't be in that 1, 2, 3, 4 drop space comfortably, armies try to like get down to 4 drops just to be at 4 drops, and it's like if your army can't do that comfortably and you're sacrificing like a playstyle or a strategy or a win stroke, which is like the worst thing to sacrifice, you don't want to bend over backwards for that. Go the opposite direction. Get all the information from your opponent, right? Like
for sure. Yeah. No, it's and like the battalions are quite good. Like I think the one that I've been having the most fun with and most success with at the moment is Shrieker Host, and I think it actually is really good in the current meta with all these armies with so many CP generating abilities. So for people that not
what a Shrieker Host is. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the Shrieker Host, if at the start of the battle shock phase, if your opponent is within 6 inches of any one of the units in the battalion, which you have 2 units of Harridans, you have 2 units of Mirmorn, and a unit and 1 Banshees. If they're within 6 of that at the start of the battle shock phase, and they roll battle shock, they have to re-roll 1s in battle shock. And the biggest one that I like about the battalion is they cannot use Inspiring Present command ability. So they're not just spending that one of their 10 CPs to pass battle shock, which I find is really, really good.
And Tomb Banshee is 60 points, right? Like, so she's a only like a
yeah.
minor tax. You can make up 60 points with an army with the quality of battle
And
line
with
this army has.
the drop in points on Harridans now, they're only 70 points each. The drop in points on them has paid for the Banshee 4 times over with my list, so or 3 times over, whatever it is. But yeah, I've been really enjoying the Shrieker host, and I've got a tournament coming up at the end of November.
I'm not even close to jealous. I'm not even a little bit jealous.
So I'll be taking the Shrieker host to that. So I'm hoping to do pretty well. Actually, I've been playing it quite a lot on TTS and having a lot of success with it. So yeah, should be good. Looking forward to that.
I just got to say the love for Kevin here in chat has been insane. Like, it filled up my entire chat pane with how much they love Kevin.
Yeah.
But apparently you're supposed to tell me about lamingtons and kebabs.
Lamingtons. That was Rock. Is that Rocco?
That's Rocco. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how that. Oh yeah, there was a thing come up with AOS coach. I was telling him in Canberra there's this kebab place that it's got. I told him it's the world's best kebabs. Like, he's never tried anything like it before.
Well, this
and
is
he just was like,
he
just started telling me it was bullshit. So,
for the American, I can actually hear how AOS coach says bullshit. By the way, and so when you said he was telling you it's bullshit, like, I heard his voice in my head, so that's really fucking funny. You mentioned TTS, so I kind of want to bring it up, just in general, because I haven't talked about it in like a month of podcasts now. So people who listen, do you for TTS? I think that we've been given a really solid gift in terms of like getting some modicum of table play, 1, through our quarantine, and 2, to just research stuff without having to commit to a lot of like upfront work. Like, I talked about how I play like essentially paper hammer to do a lot of my research to get stuff on the table. Like, I just trace basis and configurations of basis near each other. Like, I literally put down basis on paper and I trace it out, and I'll put that down as here's a deployment to practice and stuff like that. TTS allows you to do that right now. I feel like Nighthaunt is an army that has a lot of moving parts to kind of get into place. Has TTS been a really good resource for you exploring this army?
It has. As I said, I took the army earlier in the year, but even at that tournament, there was little nuances that I kept forgetting. And now I've played so many games, there's not many things I'm forgetting now, because Nighthaunt has so many things that you have to remember.
Tons of buffs.
They're all little. Yeah, they're little things. Even one thing, like, even now, I still do forget it sometimes, is Lady Olander, when she lifts a veil, she does the mortal wounds. But if you continue to read the description of that ability, at the end of it, it says if she does any wounds, she heals D3. Mm-hmm. And I always forget the healing. So it's just little things like that. If a unit fails battle shock tests within 6 of a hero, that hero then heals 1 wound. Like, just those little bits and pieces, it doesn't sound like much, but over a game, it makes a huge difference. Well, and if you're forgetting it, it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So TTS has really pushed me to remember those sorts of things as far as the army goes. And the biggest resource and the biggest thing I've found that's helped me with TTS is just because where we live is a pretty small Age of Sigmar community. There's probably less than 10 players here. So our what would you call it? We don't get to play against many different armies. Our exposure to other armies is very minimal. So me playing TTS has really allowed me to learn how all armies work in the game. I could honestly tell you I'm a hell of a lot better player now than what I was back in January before all this stuff started, just for the fact that I know how all armies pretty much work now. So I'm not getting blindsided by stuff, or even in games go quicker now because I help my opponent. I'm like, yeah, your model does that, you know.
If I can put, I don't know how many folks in chat gang or how many people watching the VOD back or listening to this back on Spotify will resonate with, but for me, like, one of the things that has been a great barrier to Age of Sigmar becoming like a higher skill curve game has been its inability to goldfish. In Magic the Gathering, there's something called goldfishing, where you'll proxy up a 60-card deck. You write on a sheet of paper, like, what another... Because it's just cards. It's just cards.
Yeah.
So you'll just write on... You'll net the last 8 decks that won a tournament. You know, like just the last 8 decks, and your friend will sit there with them and play against you real quick, and you'll play your deck that you've actually purchased and paid for, and you're putting all your time, money, and heart into, and they'll just play these little things against you, and then you get that knowledge that is just so necessary when you want to take that next step in competitive play. Like, I haven't lost a game to Skaven as Death, and I don't know how long. And it has nothing to do with the caliber of Skaven players. It has to do with the fact that I've played Skaven so much. I am really good at knowing what they're trying to do to beat me and stopping it. Yeah. Like, I don't even go into the game where I go into, like, if I line up blind against an opponent, like, say I take my OBR out against, I haven't actually played against Ironjaws with them yet, but I know what Ironjaws is trying to do, so that's a terrible example. I guess New Seraphon. I haven't seen what, like, New Seraphon's trying to do. I know the theoretical of it, but I haven't seen it on the table, right? Like, I've watched some TTS games, so on and so forth. I will line up to then execute my strategy and ignore their strategy at that point, because I'm like, I can't rely on, like, I'm going to try to, like, hey, they're going to tell me what their big threats are in their army, and they're going to tell me that stuff, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to line up to execute my strategy. And usually that works. But until you get into those really tight games where they know their army and you know your army, right? And then advantage them. Yes. Because if their army has the advantage over you, advantage them. Whereas, like, with the Skaven, when they have the advantage against me, I don't line up to execute my strategy anymore. I line up to take away their strategy and then win as a sort of a byproduct. And you can't... It's so hard to get that information in our game of Age of Sigmar. And I think that's the great tool that TTS has been. That's my big...
Oh, yeah. You're learning stuff that you're not going to learn from reading a book. It's the same with list writing. You can write so many lists yourself, and it's not until you actually play a game with that list till you actually work out if that list will work or not.
You need a practical experience. Our game requires some kinesthetic process to internalize and to see if the distances work.
Exactly. Yep. No, I totally agree.
Kicker says
it's been a really good tool.
Sorry. It has been a really good tool. Yeah, Kicker says, nice shirt, Meph. Yes, I wore my Castlevania shirt tonight because it has, like, the most ghosts per capita of the shirts that I own. But also we were talking about playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night at some point. I don't know if that's going to happen for Mephtober. So I'm going to catch back up with chat here. Still talking about Kevin. We talked about kebabs. Fluke Skywalker. Hey, my guy! I can't not say hi to you because you have such a perfect entrance all the time. Every time he's got the hey, my guys, or hey, my dudes. So, hey, Fluke Skywalker. How's it going, my friend? Yay, my tree stock might go up. What? People need to try and find ways to hide or protect them 5 Mortal Wounds heroes. And that's a tool that Nighthaunt has, is that they can hide those 5 Mortal Wound heroes, or those 5
they can
wound heroes.
Yeah, and look, it's all dependent on your opponent. Like, say for example you're against Croak and that he's doing his Mortal Wound output, he still has to roll really well for that spell to kill a 5 wound hero. And even shooting, your 5 wound heroes are getting lookout sir. Even Lady Olander gets lookout sir. So it's still not easy. Like, people think 5 wound hero dies easy. They don't die super easy. And the other thing is you want redundancy in the list. So if you do lose that 5 wound hero, it's not game over. And that's what I was sort of mentioning before, of having those different threats in your army. Your opponent might be looking at killing something else instead of that 5 wound hero. Sorry. So yeah, it's all about having multiple threats in your list. So you don't just lose that one model that's gonna lose you the game, sort of thing.
Well, we talk about like the fundamentals of Warhammer. Like good table play, understanding how to screen and chaff, and knowing to prioritize objectives over stuff like that. I feel like there's another fundamental of Warhammer we don't oft talk about, which is the mental game. And I think Nighthaunt is an army that really rewards a good mental play. You talked about hero redundancy. Hero redundancy was something we were talking about in 3 years ago, when the hypothetical shooting meta was like Clown Car KO. How do we deal with Clown Car KO at the original sort of pinnacle when it first came out? Buy the extra version of that hero, because unless they perfectly split their dice, they have to commit to killing one of them, and usually shooting sticks its neck out, and then the swing back will get them. That's why you have like 2 Bloodsecrators, 2 Slaughter Priests, like in your Khorne list, not just one. Like you build that redundancy. Night hunting behooves you to have some redundancy in the build, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, people don't think about is the underworlds has a huge psychological effect on your opponent. The underworlds for me is probably one of the things that wins me the most games, just for the fact that me putting half my army off the board means that they're setting up in a very defensive position, and they're normally pushing their army to the backboard to protect their back line, which to me is a really
hilarious.
It's putting you on the front foot from the very beginning.
Hilarious,
because, yeah. Like that means that then it's going to take them an extra turn to be able to move up the board and get into combat if that's what they do. Or if you leave stuff off the board for an extra turn or two, they've got a whole unit or a whole couple of units that are out of the game for 2 turns. Whereas, say it is like, take for example Khorne, for example. They normally want everything on the front line. They want to be running up the board.
And they want those bubbles of overlapping buffs to all be in the same spot.
Yeah. So for them, against Khorne players, you'll see they'll put, their Reavers or whatever they are, they'll have big lines across the back of their board, etc., to protect from this underworld 9-inch away deep strike. And you're like, sweet, that means there's less stuff coming at me. There's less stuff pushing up the board to take objectives. It's just that mind game that just having underworlds just changes your opponent's complete game style. Like their whole play style changes right from them turning up to the table saying, "Oh fuck, I'm playing against Nighthaunt." Like it just changes their whole play style, which really plays into your own play style and gives you that edge.
Just like, I mean, this is a teaching moment for all of the. I know you're here because Death is the best Grand Alliance, but this is a teaching moment for any faction that has like Kinnerai, Heartrenders, or your Stormcast, or you are whatever. Like, just put something in ambush or in the sky, regardless of your army. The fact that your opponent has to account for it, it becomes relevant. Like that's what why like gnaw holes are awesome for Skaven. Is because like they might have not ever intend to jump through it, but they put it somewhere, and now you have to be like, crap, I need to go put 5 direwolves around that, or they could use that later. Like, it's awesome because this is on that mental side of the game. This is why I love Beasts of Chaos, playing as Beasts of Chaos, because half my army can be an ambush, and I watch people just screen their whole back line, and I'm like, good, I was going to come over here anyway, and now you're out of the game for a turn and a half. You might as well be dead for a turn and a half. Or with the thing I miss the most, having switched from Legions of Nagash over to Ossiarch Bone Reapers, is that I don't have grave sites anymore to put that cheeky grave site over there and stash one thing in a grave site and be like, it's coming through the grave site, and then just watch someone take any unit. Like, I put 1 unit of skeletons, right? Just in the 1 unit of derpy idiot skeletons in a gravesite. That's 280 points for me if I max it out. And then I watch them go, okay, and they have to commit some points at all over to that spot, and then I'm like, okay, cool, they come out over here.
And you do it in your first turn, you're like, oh, I'll bring them up here, and they're like, oh, fuck.
Might as well have been, that unit might have well have been dead for 2 turns, 2.5 turns, depending on the battle plan. So the flip side of having to play a cagey mental army, mental fatigue. So that's the flip side of this, is I found with Beasts of Chaos and LON, because LON I felt unburdened by my cagey play with grave sites. I just it's something I did I did extra. With Beasts of Chaos it felt like it hinged on my mental play. That I had to, for 5 games or 6 games if you're in Australia, I had for 5 games just be thinking through the whole time, crushing it and outthinking my opponent. Where does Nighthaunt fall on that scale of having to outthink, having to be mentally engaged, and is there a mental fatigue element for an army that is this cagey?
I could honestly say I think Nighthaunt's probably the most mentally taxing army there is in the game. It has a very high learning curve. I think once you get to a point, I'm not saying I'm at that point yet, but I'm at a point where a lot of it I know, so a lot of it just comes naturally. I'm not having to think as much about it. But when I was first starting the army, there was a lot of stuff that you have to remember. And you'll see on the Nighthaunt page, like people get on there on Facebook and they complain that they can't win, they just die all the time, blah blah blah, which does happen. But I think it's just because they're new to the army, or they're just not playing it right. And there's a lot of, as I was saying, there's a lot to learn with Nighthaunt. It's a very steep learning curve. I think Games Workshop stuffed up a bit by making this a start collecting army.
They put it out with Stormcast.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that they might have brought it out because they brought out the easy to paint paints at the time. You know, they brought out those technical paints, so it was an easy army, hobby wise, but game wise, it was a very hard army to master. Mm-hmm. And even since the army came out, they've dropped the points. But as we're talking about
we actually
side of things,
the mental side of things. But real quick, I want to mention, like, we were kind of talking about this a little bit, like, where I feel like Nighthaunt was an overlooked army for its true potential because just the rollout that happened, like the way it came out alongside of that start collecting with Stormcast Eternals out the box. The Stormcast crushed Nighthaunt, by the way, point for point. They had the better army. So if you're playing with your friend or your mate, like, you're just, hey, let's play with it. You got crushed, and so everyone was like, oh, and you even look at the heat around the time was all around evocators, right? Like, you remember how mad
the ballistas or whatever they were as well, the shooting.
Yeah, like, and Paladors maybe, perhaps. Like, I don't recall. Like, it was like, it felt like a little bit of like this weird disharmony was kind of there from the launch of Nighthaunt, because they essentially were the vanguard of 2.0. Like, they were right at that whole, like, wave of interest built around Malign Portents and that box, and then 2.0 kind of came out. That was that whole thing. DOK was in there a little bit, and LON a little bit, but, like, as far as, like, what was getting released to sell you boxes of stuff, it was LON and Stormcast. And I feel like it just completely had people looking at the wrong stuff for this army from the onset. And then, like you talk about, that mental... It is a high skill floor army. And if you're talking about getting people to buy into the new thing, right? They don't have those reps in already. They don't have that time in already at all. And then you line up against the army that at the time, Stormcast Eternals, I'm trying to remember LLV's stats for that at the time, but I swear they were around like a 40% win rate on the competitive scene. And, like, everyone's still mad at from the aggregate score of, like, how great evocators were. And so there's just this, like, complete noise around Nighthaunt's rollout. And I think that's only hurt them. Because people haven't embraced that quest. That to climb the stairs of getting good with this army. Yes, I said get good at getting on the internet. At me. No, sorry.
Another thing is, too, people look at the stats of tournaments and they look at, like, you see it all the time. People go, oh, look, the Nighthaunt stats for tournaments, they're always in the bottom. And it's because good players are not playing the army. You're getting new players to the army, new players to the Age of Sigmar.
The new player fallacy, yep.
Yeah,
or not,
they're taking this
new player paradox,
army to one of their first tournaments or whatever it is. They're only there for the hobby side of things, and they're doing terribly with an army. And people go, "Oh, look at the stats of Nighthaunt. They're in a shit spot with the meta. They're not winning any tournaments. They're not even finishing in the top 80% at tournaments. Blah blah blah." But you put a good player behind them, and they're very competitive, especially with the points drops. The points drops since this book came out are huge.
I see you, Chat Gang. I see you. Points drops. I want to come back to this, and I want you to finish your point about the mental side of things. But GDad just gifted 5 subs to the channel, so thank you so much for that, GDad. Now there's emotes. Gifted a tier 1 sub, should say. Fluke Skywalker. Some armies play chess, some play 3D chess. This army plays 3D chess, man. This is Nighthaunt is a 3D chess army. And I think when people saw the charge ability, just going off of what Fluke said here, and then followed up by Rocco, I think when people saw the charge ability, they're like, "Oh, this is an army that just charges you. They want to alpha and charge you." And I think that just like was a kind of a false advertisement of how this army should play. Like,
It's good. It is.
It's a good ability. It's a great ability when you get it to go off.
It's actually it's really good in the current meta because a lot of like OBR, for example, we're talking about OBR. Mortek Guard can only re-roll their save rolls in the combat phase. So if you're getting that 10-inch charge and fighting in the charge phase, they're not re-rolling their saves. They're only getting their save. And same with I think Slaves to Darkness with the Chaos Warriors. They only re-roll save rolls in the combat phase.
Not just that, but there are armies that have a +1 to hit in the combat phase or like reroll ones in the combat phase. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the combat phase that you're not doing in the charge phase.
Exactly, yeah. So they can't spend their command point to reroll ones to save. They can't. So yeah, I think the 10-inch charge is really good, especially if Underworlds, because you're already 9 inches away. So if you're getting a charge off, you're normally getting a 10. So you come down, you're fighting twice, which if you get into combat, it's really good. So, and that puts you on the front foot again.
This is the one thing I want to see changed is I want it to be a 9-inch charge instead of a 10. I think out of the box it should be a 9 because you deep strike, you come off the Underworlds out of a 9. It should just be 9 just for a consistency there. I shouldn't have to already from tactically speaking, I'm already not banking on you making the 9-inch charge when you come in. I should be extra punishing when that 9 inch is correct. Look especially with the deep strike shooty armies, like the way KO and Flamers and Seraphon are going with Sallies. The whole thing is they come down outside of 9 and then they shoot you. This ability should just get FAQ'd tomorrow to be outside of 9. It's not gonna flip Nighthaunt from what I think is actually a good army to S tier oppressive. Nobody has any counterplay for it. If you make it 9, you just bring the stars in alignment a little bit more for a couple of my particular gripes about it that I think I want to address later about I think this is a good army, good leading great, and I just want that one thing to push it over the finish line to be a truly great army, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
And it's one of the things too people always talk about. A lot of players all they're wanting to do is campaign for a new Nighthaunt book, and it kind of, to be honest, it scares me a bit because I don't want a book to come out like Feck. I was a Feck player before Feck came out, and when the book was dropped, I was keen to play it, and I went to a tournament with my Legions and Nagash, and I think a quarter of the armies there were Feck, and they were just dominating, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be that player. I don't want to play that army, so I've never played Feck competitively since the book came out, and I think I've only ever played the army a couple of times just with mates. Same with my OBR. I played it, I took it to Masters. It was the first tournament.
So you're a Masters level player talking about this stuff on RantCast. Sorry.
But I bought OBR. I think it came out in November. And our tournament was December.
No. Hang on, because my podcast started and the whole thing was because OBR. They technically released our stuff in October because we got the Mod Tribes box, and then in November they actually released our real model line. So we technically came out October 31st or whatever. They said they released the pre-order, but no, we didn't realistically have models in our hands until November.
Yeah, so I bought the 2 boxes to start collecting, the Ogre one, and then I bought the other models I needed. But I built it all, I painted it all, I wrote a list. The start of November, I had 2 weeks to write a list.
I have my Feast of Bones. My second Feast of Bones is still unbuilt over here.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah. So I had to write a list for Masters with an army I'd only looked at the book at. I hadn't even tried the army out. So I wrote my list, and I had 3 weeks to build, paint, and get to Masters with. So I was really pushing myself. I played 2 or 3 practice matches. I'd lost 2 of them. I think I lost them all, actually. I can't remember. Took it to Masters, and I won Masters with it. But it was it was. I can't even remember what the point we were talking about. But,
no, we're talking about how awesome you are at playing death, and how other people need to get on your level. but you didn't feel like like with Ossiarch Bone Reapers, you there was a like sort of disharmony or whatever.
Oh, that's yeah. I was talking about how So after that tournament, we obviously had CanCon at the start of the year, which was 2 months later, and everyone expected me to take OBR to CanCon, but after that tournament at Masters, I didn't enjoy the army. Sorry to say, I know you love the army, but I just didn't enjoy the interactions with your opponent. Like, I just felt them rolling 150 dice at your unit of 20 Mortec Guard and killing 2 of them is just, it's not fun. It's not intuitive, if you know.
First off, that is gone. They can.
Yes.
They will kill like 5 of them now. Okay, so it's all fixed. It's all okay.
Yeah, it's all good now. So you just take a Catacross now, and you can still be.
Well, no, you just go. That's what you know. You go. No, you go Catacross and Mortis Praetorians. You have 1 less Ren, which just means I'll kill you a turn later.
Yes,
it really is. It's just like which in the like nail biting matches because this is an OBR stream now, everybody. Like with Ossiarch Bone Reapers, like the thing is like they're one of those armies that executes their strategy, which I like that. I really do. Like I talked about before, if I don't know your army, I'm just gonna go to like do my strategy. So they try to execute their strategy and like just try to beat you on the table, like straight up, like no bones about it. Like no tricks, no flips, no teleports, no nothing. They go into motion to do their strategy, and they either beat you or they don't. And I love that simplicity with Ossiarch Bone Reapers. As somebody who talked about like how much I like my LON grave size and how much I dig my Beast of Chaos, like KG, like outthinking you playstyle. Like I really like that Ossiarch Bone Reapers. The onus is on you to execute your strat, and your opponent just either deals with it or they don't. And I like that about them. I think it was tuned a little bit too high in favor of me executing my strat. Like I execute my strat and like I fuck it up, but then I still win anyway because you can't kill me. Like that's the part I have problem with, and not just because we raised $7,000 for charity for me to say that. Like I like Nighthaunt and Ossiarch Bone Reapers for like the same reason. It is like the thing that disconnects, and this is why I find our conversation fascinating, because I want my opponent to be making decisions too, and so it's like if I'm making decisions, you're making decisions, we're having a great game. The problem with Ossiarch Bone Reapers is you had to make the right decisions, and most opponents don't.
And if you came up against the wrong opponent, like if someone just had a whole army full of, say, Skaven clan rats and no rend or whatever, they're never going to win. Like they didn't have a chance. Like there was,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, like I think my second game at Masters was against Skaven, and he had plague monks, but he also had just a heap of clan rats and stuff, and he called it turn 2. Like I won priority turn 2, and he called it. Like we didn't even play a turn 2. And that's at Masters. Like it was just, he goes, "There's no way I can do anything." I think we're playing 2 Places of Power or Arcane Power, whatever it is.
It's amazing.
I took first turn. Yeah, and I was on the objectives first turn, and I charged up the board as well. But it was just, he knew it was over by then. And that's sort of what I was sort of getting back to is, I sort of had that feeling with Feck as well. Where I like my opponents to have a bit of a chance, but I think I enjoy winning with an army. So say Nighthaunt, for example. I enjoy winning with Nighthaunt because when you rock up to a table, your opponent they don't expect to get wiped off the table, and they might even expect they're going to win again. Like they're going to go, I should win this game.
They might underestimate you even walking up to the table.
Yeah. And you win the game, and they don't get salty about it. Like if you win with Nighthaunt, your opponent's not salty. If you win with Zinch, Seraphon, OBR, whatever it is, people are like,
not OBR anymore. We've been fixed. You can't get mad if you lose to OBR anymore. No, go on.
But yeah, you get that feeling from your opponent, even if they're a nice person. You do get that feeling of they didn't enjoy the game, or they just think, oh well, I lost to Seraphon. Who cares? Like I was expected.
I need to talk to you more. I love your POV. A Masters winning, Nighthaunt playing, POV of no. The thing that differs. I think I mentioned, maybe it was on the cold open, or maybe it was before we went live, about like competition for me in terms of like I'll play you hard on the table and stuff like that, but like I want there to be a when I go into Age of Sigmar, when I play a game against somebody in Age of Sigmar, even if I'm trying to win, to win.
Oh yeah. I don't like losing. Put it
like,
that way. I hate losing.
Right, but I want my opponent to have a good game. Like I just like when I go into a game of Age of Sigmar, something that is sacrosanct to me beyond any other competitive thing I have ever done in my life, and I've been around competition in gaming my whole life, and even some sports early on. Like I want to have a good game, and I want my opponent to have a good game. So I step it up to the table wanting my opponent to have a good game. And the worst thing in the world is to walk up with an army and then just go and then check out from the game. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of the worst feelings. Petrifex Elite had that feeling. LON Nagash at the height of like 60 Grimghast Reapers plus Nagash. Like it had that feeling. If you're playing Seraphon right now, Technado, LRL, Zinch, maybe to a lesser degree because they've kind of been brought back in line. I think they're all right. They're, you know, and then KO now because they got unnecessary points drops when they were already pushing like super viability. They got Fire Slayers where Fire Slayers were already like really good. No one was playing them right yet, and then they're like, "Here's the points drops to make you play them the right way." And I'm like, no, don't incentivize people to already play the strongest list. Why are you doing this again? Anyway, I digress on that subject. You know, and this is a teaching moment, community, dear sweet community. Don't harsh on your opponent for what they pull to the table, please. Similarly, don't underestimate this motherfucker bringing up Nighthaunt to the table because he's gonna taking away your underdog power. This is. No, I like Nighthaunt because, and I'm going to bring it all the way back to, I think Nighthaunt makes decisions to win the game, and there are armies out there where it feels like you just line up and push forward, or line up and execute your strategy and win the game. Nighthaunt plays the opponent, and I think that's what makes them special. Yeah,
for sure. Like even in my games, there'll be a lot of time where my chain rasps have been hit in combat, and then it's my turn. I'll just retreat them. I'll fly over the top and I'll just sit on that objective and hold the objective. And a lot of players don't use retreats enough in the game. Like retreating, especially if Nighthaunt, is just so good. Units like Chain Rasp don't do any damage anyway, so you don't care if they're stuck in combat. So you want to get them out of combat. You're wanting to move, retreat, fly over lines, whatever. But you just want to be staying on the objective.
Yeah, you can retreat over somebody with a flying unit.
Yeah.
Which is a lesser used, like Chain Rasps, I think are one of the point for point single best battle line in the game right now.
Yeah.
At me, tell me I'm wrong. But like the fact that they can like hold an objective.
More tech guard is still probably the best battle line in the game.
Let's go. You're right. I get only two. One of them are allowed to be the best. No, Chain Rasp, like the fact that they can like, what people don't realize is you can retreat with them, and you can actually retreat over the unit, run, and then like just be on the next objective and stuff, because they fly. And so like when we're entering a world of like 8 objective game plans, we're entering a world where battle line get extra scoring. Like when you have that unit that's about to get wiped out on your objective, and you retreat, fly over, and then onto the next objective, like woo! Like. There's some insanity there.
And even like, so with them, and even your Mirmor Banshees, like they're only 70 points now for 4, and I'm having to take them in my Shrieker Host Battalion. I'll sit them right over on the flank of the board. Like, I played someone the other week, and I sat them right on the edge of the board on the far right, and one on the far left, and it meant that their whole unit, I think it was Chaos Knights, like 10 Chaos Knights, had to run over, charge into them, and kill them. And I'm like, dude, I'm happy that you just spent 360 points of unit to kill my 70-point unit of Mirmor. Like, it does stuff like that. Like, I'm happy to throw away 80 points worth of Chain Rasp or 70 points worth of Mirmor because at the end of the day, it's stopping a 200 and whatever point unit from hitting your main force. It's putting that unit off the board and out of combat.
I'm sorry, G-Dead here. Apparently you're the mayor and he's like the deputy mayor. He's giving me shit in chat. Because I guess he was one of your first like patrons or something like that. It was what he explained to me. He's saying that Meph thinks everyone's battle line is the best. He said the same thing about ghouls. No. I said ghouls are one of the most underrated battle line in the game right now. And I said that chain rasps are low-key one of the best. These are different umbrellas, kid. Don't at me. Ghouls are like underrated. Ghouls are super underrated for like 100 points and all the work that they can do, outflank, regen, like, and activating twice. Chain rasp out the box, a single block of 10 of them do so much work, and they do additional work beyond what you think, from being able to stash them underground if you're running Nighthaunt. Because now you've got a thing that only needs to move 3 inches to threaten your thing. So I'm not gonna. I don't even want to make the charge this turn. I just want them to sit over here. And
then for 80 points, you can drop them on an objective in the middle of the board first turn to take that, score it. Yeah. And then they die in your opponent's turn. 80 points. Who cares?
Woo! Got it. Yeah. No. Low key, one of the best and underrated. 2 different takes. Get out of here, Deputy Mayor. Vote it out. I'm keeping the mayor. Get rid of this guy. Sorry.
No, I agree. They are very good.
I completely derailed the conversation that was going on there myself, though. I'm sorry. Pull up the clips, he says. Okay, fine. No. I think we were going back to like the skill curve, and then we were going through the progression.
Yeah, and talking about not playing army like that, and that's the reason I took this army to CanCon was not wanting to take OBR. And Legions in the Gash is an army I'd played for the previous 2 CanCons or whatever it was. I think I'd missed the year before. I can't remember. I took Beast Claw Raiders, but anyway. It was the Legions of the Gash had played tournaments for a year and a half, 2 years solid. And after GHB 2 came out, not GHB 2, Age of Sigmar 2, 2.0, and the fact that we couldn't buy multiple command points. So my Legions of the Gash list, I was always keeping 100 points spare for those 2 command points.
Yep.
Because you really needed it. Like without battalion, there was really no good battalions to take. So without battalions, you needed those 2 command points. When that changed and the cost of like your necromancer went up, a couple of things went up. It was
when L1 got over nerfed. You're right. Go on.
Yeah, it kind of it sort of put them out of the higher tiers, and they made it a lot harder to play. So going into CanCon this year, I was like, I want to take my Nighthaunt because I feel that it's a very beautifully painted army I've done, and I really enjoy the aesthetic of the army. I'm like, I'm going to take this army. I want to try and get a painting prize, which I didn't get. Clint, if you're listening, didn't even get nominated. Anyway, I actually wanted to get nominated. I knew I wasn't going to win the prize because there's some fucking amazing armies there. So that's the main reason I took Nighthaunt, and I turned up to that tournament. I would have been extremely happy to go 4-2. And then when I started playing the armies, I'm like, hang on a sec. This army's actually got legs. It's got a good chance of doing really well. It wasn't the best list I'd ever written either. It was mainly just filled up with stuff that I had painted already. So after the end of CanCon going 5-1, I'm like, oh, hang on a sec. This army actually has got legs. And it made me really put the time and effort into the army. And ever since, I've really put so much time into the army this year. And really, the army has so many tools. Like, it's got one of the biggest toolboxes there is. Like, it can deal with so much shit.
Well, this is where we move towards like the toolbox and decision making side of things. Like, I think that's one of the greatest strengths of Nighthaunt is 100%. Like, I want to be a toolbox army in this current meta because it's such a wide meta, right? Like, it's such a wide meta. Yeah. And you're bringing one of these awesome advantages because you look at like the current battle plans of like heroes give you bonus points, monsters, okay, that's a punt, but battle line give you bonus points, and you have some of the strongest battle line options as Nighthaunt in the game right now. Like some of the
and even our monster, like we got the Black Coach and Mongol. They're both behemoth monsters.
Oh,
so
and you actually play with Mongol yourself, right? Like
I do, yeah. Mongol in nearly every list, and even Black Coach. I was because I've got my mod. I've spent 30 something hours painting my Black Coach. It looks amazing.
Such a great model. What S tier model? S tier model. Come at me like one of the best models in this game. You can be mad about the overhang on the base, but you're wrong. Go on.
And the good thing about its base size is focal points is it can touch 2 objectives at once, giving you 2 bonus points for having a monster on both objectives. So yeah, take that into account when writing lists, and whatever tournament you've got coming up, if it's got focal points, definitely look at that. But yeah, look, honestly, our monster behemoth are really good. Mongol is so underrated. It's one of the best units in the game.
Well, talk to me about Mongol. I'm gonna have you riff for a while. You have to go solo on RantCast. You got this.
So Mongol, obviously it's a Forge World model, so you don't. It's not easy to come by anymore. But for 270 points, you're getting bonus points on the monster missions. But he's a really good candidate for that Underworlds to pop up in your opponent's backlines or whatever. Charge him in. He's got 8 attacks, 3s and 3s, 6s to hit, 2 mortal wounds, and he's neg 1 ren 2 damage. The biggest thing about him is you get him stuck in combat with something because of he's such a small base for a monster. He's not getting your opponent's not getting a lot of attacks back into him. They're all neg 1 to hit in a 6-inch bubble around him, and if he's killed a model at combat phase, he's healing D3 at the end of every combat phase. So he's a 10 wound model, which isn't a lot, but he's a 4-up unrendable. Healing D3 every combat phase if you're killing models. So he's actually, for 270 points, he becomes very good because he's so hard to kill. And in a lot of my games, he survives well past turn 3 if played right. He just, yeah. And then if you send in, say, Kevin with him from the Underworlds, it just makes Kevin survive that bit longer too, given Kevin he'll be neg 1 to hit as well if he's near the Mongol. But yeah, look, Mongol's something I always take in most of my lists lately. That Shrieker host I've got currently is I sort of tossing up between the Mongol, or do I take the Black Coach and get an extra CP? The Black Coach is also amazing as well, but yeah, Mongol for me is really good, and he's back. We're just talking about how good I am, and
you should. Have you thought about making content on the internet?
Yeah. So I've got a YouTube channel if anyone wants to check it out. Borderline Gaming. I've got heaps of tactics. I've been doing a tactics series on Nighthaunt, and I've got I've been doing. There's quite a lot of Nighthaunt battle reports if anyone's interested. That's Borderline Gaming. But anyway.
Yes.
I've talked about Mongol. Done.
No, way to go. Like, see, I ran out of beer. This got a lot more interesting. No. This has been, man. All right, the merry month of death continues on. While you're on sort of gems of the army, what are your thoughts on spirit hosts?
Oh man, yeah, they're in every list. They're really good.
Sorry.
You're right.
No, spirit hosts. Like, I feel like there are 2 Nighthaunt players, and even this goes back to even like LON and like pre-LON tome death players. Is like there are people who are like pro spirit host and anti spirit host.
So even in my Legions and Nagash list, I had spirit hosts. Yeah, they're good. In nearly every Nighthaunt list I write, I've got a unit of 9 spirit hosts. I think 9's where it's at. 6
like a full 9 block. It's got to be
a full 9 block. Yep, it's got to be a unit of 9. And if you combine them with ruler of the spirit host, or even a black coach, you're bringing back D3 slain models. So anything that can bring back 3 spirit hosts, that's 9 unrendable models, unrendable wounds, is really bloody good. So there's not a lot of units in that game that can charge into a unit of 9 spirit hosts and wipe them in one combat. And then if you're getting a triumph to reroll saves, or if you've got Shade Mist is a good one to cast on them, so they're neg 1 to be wounded. Get a Mystic Shield on them to reroll ones to save. A unit 9 Spirit Host is effing hard to kill. it's a really good anvil unit, and in saying that, if you've got it backed up by a Spirit Torment, they actually pump out a lot of mortal wounds. So on average, a unit of 9 without a Spirit Torment is 9 mortal wounds. Add that Spirit Torment in, you're doing on average maybe 11, 12 mortal wounds, or whatever it works out, 10, 11 mortal wounds. That's just on averages, without their hitting and wounds. If you add a Lady Olander in there to cast a spell on something, they're hitting on 4s. They're 6 attacks each. So,
So G-Dud, I'm going to answer your question. How can you be anti-spirit hosts? I think the big thing is that they people don't use them the correct way. They're really strong, as you've been pointing out, like super strong, like anvils, and sometimes like I call them a grenade. Like sometimes they're a grenade you just throw over on that thing, and like you don't intend to like win outright. You're just like, no, I want the boom, like a sort of like a mobile tar pit. You just throwing that tar pit over there and saying like you're gonna get stuck there, and if the dice are on my side, like you're dead. Otherwise, like I know what I've done. And I think that the people who are the reason I brought it up tonight is I think spirit hosts are good. I just think they're used wrong. People think that they're a hammer or something, or like a low cost delivery system for mortal wounds. I
think people take them in units of 3, and I think units of 3 can be pretty useless. Like a unit of 3 is not gonna be pumping out any wounds. They're not really gonna tank a lot of wounds, and for that same points cost, you may as well just take a unit of 10 chain rust, like for 40 points cheaper, if you know what I mean. But yeah, like a unit of 9 spirit hosts, I always run them with. I'll have Lady Olander behind them. So normally you've been hit by a charge, then in your hero phase, Lady Olander just opens up a can of whoop ass in the hero phase and just like mortal wounds everything off that's in front of her. But then you've got, and if you set up, so if you've got a couple of big heroes, say Kurdos, even a Spirit Torment, Mongol or Lady Olander, they're all got 2-inch reach. So you can sit them behind your Spirit Hosts in base contact. When those Spirit Hosts get hit by a charge, those heroes behind are swinging back as well.
Yeah, they get pulled in.
Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to earlier in the podcast about how if your opponent alpha strikes you, you can normally hit back really hard in your combat, in their combat phase, and then you're pushing up the board in your turn. So, look, 9 Spirit Hosts is like my go-to. It's in every Nighthaunt list I write. I don't leave home without it, because you need that strong anvil unit in Nighthaunt. You need to be able to absorb that big charge where your opponent's not going to charge in and kill all your heroes and wipe your units in one turn. The Spirit Hosts just don't get wiped. Well, they just don't die.
And they got the bigger weird base.
Yeah, no, it's a 50 mil round base.
Yeah, that's the circle. Big.
Yeah, circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big base. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the big circle base. So you just like spread them out a little bit, and you're like, wow.
Yeah. So you've got a big line. Like the line can be, I think it's about. I think it must be about 18 inches long or something. Like it's huge line. You put your Spirit Torment in the middle of that line at the back, and he's providing the death save to Holly within 12 either end, and he's providing the reroll ones to hit as well, like either end, like with a 12-inch bubble. So yeah, look, 9-inch. Look, Spirit Host, I don't leave home without. You gotta build your list with. I don't think units of 3 are great. Like I just don't think 3 is where it's at. I think there's better options if you want to take a unit of 3 for 120 points. I think you're better off because they're only 9 wounds. I think you're better off taking a unit of 10 chain rats for 80 points, 40 points cheaper. You've got an extra wound. Yes, it's only a 5-up save, but you've got more bodies. It's 10 bodies on objective, whereas Spirit Host, for the same points, you're only getting 3 bodies. So I think units of 3 Spirit Hosts probably are not where it's at. I think you're needing the...
And 6, you don't go far enough.
No.
6, you just don't go far enough. 9 is the opponent needs to commit something serious to it, and if they've committed something serious to it, you should theoretically be winning elsewhere on the table. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like they had to commit their 20 or 30 block to thing to kill or threaten or outscore, because with their base size, they should be holding that objective, just being pushed forward, regenning with the Spirit Torment. So it's hard to get in and threaten an objective if you're using them as a traditional anvil or anchor point for your army. Yeah, perfect.
Spirit Hosts, that's where it's at.
Right.
And they're a battle line. They're a battle line unit too, as we were talking earlier. They're, extra points on objectives, whatever, but it's taking up a battle line spot.
Well, I think this is the real strength of, because that's not a tax to do that. This is the real strength of Nighthaunt for me, is they have such a high quality of battle line. If you see the potential in the army, and I think that the GHB helped them. We were talking about, I believe it was offline, could have been the cold open. I think Nighthaunt's great in the meta right now. You obviously think they're great in the meta right now.
I think they are, yeah.
What in the meta has helped them beyond, obviously, we have the S tier, these are the nightmares. What now makes... Go ahead.
I think what makes... It's something they've always had, but I think it's the fact they ignore Rend. And all these... The current armies being released, nearly every new army now has Rend, and they have a lot of Rend. And they're pointed accordingly so. So you're getting these elite style armies being released, like LRL, etc., that have Rend, and their points cost they're accordingly pointed for that Rend. So you're already one step ahead by ignoring that Rend. And then you've got even these newer, older armies that are coming back, like your Blight Kings and that Blight System, and having that Rend in Blight System, it's a waste of points.
Well,
for them
I mean, that's an interesting. I'm actually kind of happy you brought up Blight Kings coming back, because they're looking at a huge wound density. They have a huge wound density wherever they are on the table. Decent saves and an after save that doesn't stack anymore. One of the big criticisms of Nighthaunt is that they don't do enough damage. We're starting to see some of LRL. I think you actually pair really, really well against, because they're a low wound count army when it gets right down to everything they're trying to do. I actually think
low bravery too.
I think Nighthaunt actually kicks the crap out of LRL if you get to that that appropriate skill floor. By the way, you heard it here. LRR countered by Nighthaunt. Seraphon.
I've played LRO with Nighthaunt, and I've beat them in 2 turns. They smash. They do smash because of the low bravery, and the low saves, and they don't have, unless you've got your techless spell off with the ignoring mortals. Mortals just smash through LRL as well, and Rend. But yeah, you're right. And I think that one of the other things too with makes Nighthaunt good in the current meta is we're not seeing armies that have 1 million attacks. When
Witch Elves, right? Witch Elves was the height of power. Yeah.
Yeah, height of power. You had a lot of Legions in the Gash with heaps of skeletons, with heaps of attacks. So that's one of Nighthaunt's downfalls is
volume.
Weight of attack.
Volume of attack. Just the buckets of dice on them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think we've shifted away from that in the current meta. So I think that's another thing that's actually put us back, where I honestly think we're up in the tiers higher than people think.
Another reason I love OBR is because I get to play my 100 skeleton army with 60 skeletons instead, thankfully. I'm really just playing my old LON army, but with fewer models, and I'm
Yeah.
Like, I like this trend. I like the lower buckets of dice trend. Skaven got to be a problem for Nighthaunt. We might come back to that a little bit. But what makes them good in the meta is, like, we're seeing that, like, volumetric meta kind of down a little bit. We're seeing a little bit... We've gotten a little bit more elite, I think. We've gone a little bit more elite.
Yeah. And that plays into Nighthaunt's hands. Elite, so even like I've been playing against Sons of Behemoth a bit lately, and like their rend, it's just they got rend 3 attack.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh, what's that? I'm still a 4-up save. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, 2 and 3, like... 2 and 3 for free. They get their mortals off the charge. Like, that's the army. Yeah.
So no, look, I think the ignoring rend is huge now. When the book was released, it wasn't huge because there was
no one was playing with rend. By the way,
even Stormcast at the time, Stormcast was their biggest counter, and they had no rend. Like, they were just, it was.
Do you know how you know that's true? Is because for one entire calendar year, I was telling people rend and mortal wounds are good, and then they still weren't bringing them for a long time. And then I played Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and they were Petrifex Elite, and I told you, I'm like, didn't you hear me the whole last year? I told you Rend and Mortal Wounds are good, but apparently no one heard me say that.
And that's sort of what my my Nighthaunt list for CanCon was kind of built to counter OBR. So I knew there would have been a lot of OBR there, and
guilty.
So I had a lot of neg. So like I had Kurdos for neg 2 rend. I had Islanders neg 2 rend. I had Spirit Torments neg 2 rend. Black Coach's neg 1 for a lot. But I also had a lot of mortal wound output as well. So I had the Spirit Host and everything else. So I knew OBR after playing them. I knew their biggest weakness is rend and mortal wounds. So the fact that I had a lot of that in my army, like I played a Petrifex Nagash list in the last game. With my Nighthaunt, and I ended up winning that game. It's very close, actually. It was a really close game in the end. But
one question, real, not to interrupt your thought. Did you play a real game of Age of Sigmar against them? Were you making moves and counter moves, and
Oh yeah. So because he had Nagash. Nagash can only be in one place at a time. I think it was. Points.
That's what I was saying. Go on.
Yeah. So
next week is the OBR episode, so I'm just like teasing that.
So who you had on earlier, Michael Thompson. Me and Michael Thompson are really good mates, but when it comes to list building, we are so polar opposite. We've been Legions and Nagash. He's always been a Nagash player, and I've always been a player that hates spending that much.
See,
I'm like, there's too many points on one model, dude. And he does it well, but like.
We didn't hammer that point home nearly enough. We didn't hammer that point home nearly enough when he was on. This is my feeling as a host, because one of the things I really wanted to bring up is the difference between like building sort of like tall or wide. Yeah. A Nagash list is a tall list, an Archaon list. Archaon right now, you heard it here first. Archaon in Slaves to Darkness is better than you think it is, but you have to absorb the fact that you're going with a tall versus a wide strategy. So you have to maximize that sort of like penetration, that punching force of the tall model. Like you're the tall cost of this is the Death Star thing. Like Fire Slayers are technically a tall rather than wide army, but they just behoove you to maximize that sort of penetrating, that punching force someplace. Too many people play Nagash super conservative. That is a mistake.
Yeah, and Nighthaunt is a good counter because of our underworlds, our movement shenanigans. Like even with our general, the spectral summons, we can take a unit from anywhere on the board, bring it to your general. So talking about Archaon, in my first game at CanCon, it was against an Archaon list. It was Archaon Khorne, and I knew I could not kill Archaon with the list I had. I knew I could not kill him. So the way I set up my army was I put Lady Olander and Kurdos over as far to my right-hand corner as I could in setup, and the other rest of my army that I put on the board was over to the far left as far as I could. Everything else was in the underworlds, and I knew that the Archaon player would have to commit to one side or the other, and he did. He committed to the Olander Kurdos side and moved over and charged. But then it meant that Archaon was out of the game for 2 turns. While the rest of my army pushed up the board, I ended up wiping his whole army by the end of it, Archeon wasn't wounded, and he was back. He was back into combat by the end of the game. But I'd won like I think it was like 28 points to like 3, as far as points went. Because I just played the game, whereas I baited him in. I knew what I was doing. I baited him into doing what he ended up doing.
Well,
And that's what you got to do with Nighthaunt. You just got to play to your opponent's army.
Well, this is a good teaching moment for facing the tall list versus the wide list.
Yeah.
Is like knowing that like you're either an army that can deal with the Archeon, the Nagash, the Techless now. I think is the Techless and the Croak are all in that same category because that's the tall list. Now Croak is doing some extra stuff that he really should just be like 100 points more expensive. But I digress on that. Like the Techless, the Croak, the Nagash, the Archeon, they're kind of doing like that thing. Right, that tall, sort of straightforward punching strategy. You just need to accept whether your army can either deal with them and kill them, or they can't. And if they can't, ignore them. Do everything else on the table. Yeah. And like you have to understand that with these armies that have these like massive, like sort of like Death Stars or huge point sinks or whatever it is, you just go either deal with that or I can't. And if I can't, deal with everything else. Like.
Yeah,
that's how you play the game of Age of Sigmar, and I this comes back to caginess of Nighthaunt. Nighthaunt has to play the game of Age of Sigmar. They have to play the table, and they have to play their opponent. It's not just like I have this thing that's my win stroke, and I just play that every time, and then I win. They don't get that luxury. They must play the game of Age of Sigmar, and I think that's what makes them a beautiful army. This is why I'm super happy that we're kind of my Super Homer episode at the end of the month is coming next week with OBR, but it's appropriate that we've built up to talking about Nighthaunt tonight because this is a great army that has so many tools to play the game of Age of Sigmar right now. And the GHB just came out and said, we're going to incentivize you to play the game of Age of Sigmar a little bit better. You have the probably in terms of an army, battle line. An army just looking at your battle line like diversity. You have some of the greatest diversity of battle line that has ever existed in Age of Sigmar. And they all rock. And you just got better because of our battle plans.
Yeah, Grimghast Reapers, Spirit Hosts, even the, what are they, Hex Race. I'm not a huge fan of Hex Race, but that's another...
This is where we diverge in I got it. I figured it out while we were talking about Spirit Hosts. Why I like Hex Wraiths, and I am not like I said. There's people who are either pro Spirit Hosts or anti Spirit Hosts. I am not anti Spirit Hosts, but while you were talking about Spirit Hosts, I realized why I liked Hex Wraiths because I do that with what you talk about doing with Spirit Hosts. I do with Hex Wraiths on someone else's objective. And that's, for me, that was the difference. Is like, I just like, instead I just throw this over there, and like, you're going to have to deal with that over there, or you won't. And if you don't, then, you know, and that's, and so I just kind of like saw how we have like slightly different play styles, and this is where you're talking about your friend, Mr. Thompson, and I'm like, I see how our Venn diagram fits together of like 3 circles and where like the overlap is. So that was really fun for me.
I just find, with Hex Race, I find that they don't really have a damage output that they should have. Like I always compare them with Black Knights, for example. Like,
my favorite unit.
Why don't Hex Race have a charge bonus? Why don't they get +1 to wound, a hit, or +1 damage? Like it's just
because they do the mortals.
But that's a shit ability, really.
It is.
5 models with a 5-up mortals thing that you might not even be able to actually go over that unit when you charge it. Like you might not be able to move. You can touch it and come back. But a unit of 5, we'll say 10 because it's easier. On a 5-up, 1/3 of those are going to be mortals, so you might get 3 mortal wounds from it at best. And that's for a 280 point unit. And then in combat, they've only got 2 attacks each, which is 20 attacks there. So you might get another 3 mortal wounds on a 6. So yeah, you're getting the mortal wounds are getting slowly up there, but I just find for their points and that I don't know, I just can't bring I think I've got better options in the army to do kind of what they do, but better or differently.
As an LON player, I would disagree. As a Nighthaunt player, I completely agree. In LON, like what they're, but in Nighthaunt, you just have such a breadth of options that you're just like, I can do that.
Like we've got really good movement with a lot of stuff. Like you add the pendant of fell
plus
wind,
plus the coming from the underworlds. Plus the fact that you come underworld thing. Yeah.
But you add the pendant of fell wind in, and a lot of our stuff, like a lot of our units are 8-inch move, like the Harridans and your Grimghast Reavers are 8-inch move. So you add the 3-inch, they're 11-inch move. Like that's a cavalry unit anyway. 11-inch move unit of Harridans or Grimghast Reapers. So I kind of find the 12-inch move of the Hex Race can be a bit moot with what we've got. It comes down to taste, and I don't tell people not like. In my tactics, I'll be talking about how Hex Race can be good, and they can be used well. Like Dolores Guard is really good if you want to keep a hero alive. But look, just from my personal point of view, I'd want to take a cavalry unit for something that can charge up the board, hit hard,
murder it,
and wipe a unit.
Yep.
Like Black Knights. Like you and I love Black Knights. They're like
one of my favorite units.
I took
Cavalos Death Riders are just like the next tier, and I'm like, I just wanted better Black Knights. You're right. Like, go on. Yeah. Go on. You took Black Knights to your first tournament. You took Black Knights to your first.
4 attacks each, and they're piling in twice, and it's just they obliterate stuff. Like it's 60 damage. Like they can do 15 Black Knights can do 60 damage.
I don't know.
Yeah. What are they? 15, 30. Yeah, 60 attacks. Sorry. Hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. If you've got
off the charge, because off the charge you get the +1 to wound, right?
Yeah. So, and if you're running, I like to run Manfred with that army now too, and he's rerolling 1s to hit and wound. So they're 3s reroll 1s, 3s reroll 1s. No rend, which hurts.
I was running Nagash then. So he rerolls ones to save and wound, so it's like we calls it even.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a unit of 15 Black Knights on the charge will obliterate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
even something with a 4-up save, they save half the attacks, but they're 2 damage each. So it's even if they're saving half, they're still taking like 40 wounds. Like it's just so good.
You might have
and then Van Hells, and then they're just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go again.
I don't want to cut you off here, but like the single unit that I got the most surprised look on anybody's face ever in 3 years of Age of Sigmar now, maybe going on 4, was throwing a Black Knight, a unit of 10 or 10 units, 10 Black Knights into the thing with a Van Hels that I cast before they even move, you know? Like, I'm going to Van Hels the Black Knights, and they're like, I thought you were going to Van Hels, like, the Grimghast Reapers, or the
40 skeletons.
Or the 40 skeletons, and they're like, no, those Black Knights over there. Like, right on someone's flank. And to watch people's faces go from, like, I can deal with 10. You know, like, the amount of times where I watched the surprise look when Black Knights come in for that 2 damage, and even on their, like you said, like even when they're on the 4-up save, they're like, they don't have rend no matter what. I'm like, but the ones that get through, take off that extra model or whatever.
And then the best thing is too, they're like, when they set up their army, like, I'm going to set up, because they see you got cavalry, I'll set up 3 inches behind my front line. You're like, oh yeah. So you charge in, you wipe that front unit, and then you pile in 3 inches and you hit that back unit anyway, and then you do that much damage that they can't kill that unit, and then in their whole turn they got to deal with 10, 15 Black Knights, and they kill them, and you just spend a point and they're back. Like
I love that we're talking about Black Knights in the Nighthaunt stream, because this has been the common thread throughout the entire weekend, or the entire month of Death, is how much I love Black Knights. So my reaction to Flesh Eater Courts getting really good wasn't to play Flesh Eater Courts, it was to play 20 Black Knight unit instead of a 15 in Death March, and just throw 20 Black Knights at a dragon and go, this thing is dancing, and it has the +1 attack, and it has a +2 attack. You're either going to kill them all right now, or I'm going to activate and obliterate your Terrorgeist. That was how I played them. And, like, the number of Terrorgeists I saw where I'm just like, there's 20 Black Knights, and they're like, okay, I did 20 mortal wounds, basically. I'm like, okay, all right. Like, 7 Black Knights get through. Take 30 damage.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of what lets me down with Hexray. So I'm like, why don't they get a bonus to charge? Why don't they? Every cavalry in the game has a bonus to charge. Normally it's an extra damage. So if you made Hexrays 2 damage on the charge, I would take them every day of the week. I think they'd be perfect. But the fact that they're just 1 damage, they hit on 4s, so only half the attacks even hit. Yeah. And then they're wounding on 3s. I just they let me down so much. I just can't. I can't take them. But yeah, there's people that take them, and yeah, look, all to you. Do it. Have fun with them. They're a cool looking unit. Do what you want.
They look metal as hell because scythes are sweet, and then they have the scythes with the lanterns.
Just break off. They're a pain. Mine all broke off.
You might have brought me back around to being anti-Hexwraith, because I was like pro-Hexwraith coming into the stream tonight. Because I like the Death Riders battalion. I actually do, but I like it in Grand Alliance Death.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I like it so much in Nighthaunt, because it doesn't build to what Nighthaunt's trying to do, and I think that's ultimately where I come down on that battalion, is because Nighthaunt, if I tried to build a strategy around Death Knights, or sorry, Hexwraiths being my win condition,
yeah,
my army doesn't do anything else of value. Whereas if I'm picking like Shroud Guard or something else, like I'm able to have a win condition across the table.
Yeah.
The win condition for Death Riders is hoping that they go in and do enough damage with their tricks and their double activations, and then they kind of pin and win. But I just don't think that's something they do, because once they get stuck in with my Black Knights, okay, so like I don't obliterate you with my Black Knights. One of 2 outcomes, invariable outcomes, right? With my Black Knights is they don't obliterate you, and then you're stuck in with them.
Yeah.
They just go, fine.
That's fine. Yeah, waste the whole turn dealing with them.
Or you obliterate them, and then I just, like, 1 CP, and this is from the LON perspective, I just, like, and I 1 CP and throw them right back at you. 18-inch threat a turn later. I've won entire Knife to the Heart games of just literally turtling up on my whole objective point with my entire army, and just, like, pew, 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 15 Black Knights, 15 Black Knights, 15 Black Knights, 15 Black Knights, and just one.
And the good thing is, too, it gives you a chance to walk your units of 40 skeletons up the board, like, and they're not getting hassled at all, because they got Black Knights to do it.
Right, because they're setting the point of attack, and then you're able to follow up with that punch. Usually it's great, like a 20 of Graveguard is what I'm usually marching forward. Like, because I love I don't know if we talked about it during the LON episode. Go back and watch the LON episode and hear me talk about how much I love Death March, because then you're just like,
good. I love it.
Graveguard are like,
it's the only battalion worth taking, to be honest, in Legion to the Gash. Like, there's no other battalion.
Go watch that episode, but yeah, Death March is great. No, so like I'm seeing as we've been talking about this, I'm seeing the puzzle that are hex wraiths in Nighthaunt. I think hex wraiths are an LON unit, not a Nighthaunt unit. And I think that's the ultimate thing I've come down on here. Yeah,
look, and I don't want to talk bad. Like, I know there's people that play them and play them well, and I think maybe they're good in units of 5, just as objective grabbers and run around the board and stuff. But I don't see, and I think that's the trap people come into with Nighthaunt, is they try and build a list around, like full of Grimghast Reavers, full of Blade Guys that'll push up and wipe your opponent. It's not, Nighthaunt is not played that way. you can still wipe your opponent without having that sort of list. Like, you need redundancy in your list. You need to be able to have an handful.
Redundancy. This is one that you've said this a couple times tonight. I want this to be a takeaway point from this episode. When you go home to build your Nighthaunt list afterwards, you need redundancy. You need redundancy in your list. Continue.
Like, if you lose, you don't want to have a unit of 30 Grimghast as your main attack, and then your opponent wipes that unit. You've got nothing. Like, you're left with a lot of bunch of nothing. So I think when you build a Nighthaunt list, you want to have multiple points.
This is the MSU army. This is the quintessential MSU army, right?
Yeah. And look, I don't want to say go out and just have all units of 10 Chain Rats. Don't do that. You still want to have, say, units of 10 Harridans, you can have units of 10, what are I was just talking about them, the Blade Guys.
I like Blade Guys.
Like, 10s of those and Harridans are good. I think 10 units of Reapers are probably not where it's at. I think you need at least 20 Reapers in a unit.
Yep, 20.
But that's where Legions of Nagash really fucked up Nighthaunt, is the fact that they had Grimghast Reapers and they made them 160 points now. They were good at 140. 160, they're just too much. Like, they were 140 in Nighthaunt was really good. 160 in Nighthaunt's not so good.
I have a take about this. It was a mistake to up their cost to begin with.
Yeah.
Even in Legion of Nagash, where Necromancer went up 20 points, Nagash went up freaking 80 points. Like, it was a mistake at the time to increase.
He came down in points when they came out, which was the big issue. He was 800 points. He only went up when OBR came up. Like, he was preempting. He was nearly 900 points.
But he came out.
He was 900.
He came out preempting OBR. He came out the GHB before OBR, and they left Nighthaunt hanging in the wind because Grimghast Reapers don't deserve to be at the point cost they are right now. I think they're worth a revisit, by the way, as a unit of 10. I do think a unit of 10 of them does some weird work because they are battle line and they have to chop them up. They get to reap and stuff. They're ethereal. They have the rend. I do think they have some. I
honestly think they're a good candidate for having a multiple points cost. So I think they could have maybe been 160 for Legion of Nagash and one.
No need.
At 140.
No need.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if they.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But like, what does Legion of Nagash? How OP is Legion of Nagash right now if they are at the Nighthaunt lower point cost? Is Legion of Nagash just suddenly going to tear?
Not now. No.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
okay.
I mean, yeah. When they did the first points change, like, it really, like, for Nighthaunt, it just put them out. Like,
well,
why?
No, you're right. Like, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Like, they just shit on Nighthaunt. It just shit on Nighthaunt. Yeah. And Legion of Nagash was about to get its crap pushed in by the entire meta and the whole GHB change.
Yeah.
So it's like it was the wrong decision at the time. Right now, I think they have some value in Nighthaunt because the battle line thing and how the GHB has gone.
Look, they're still good.
They're still good, but like, you can just revert their points costs, and you do not ruin the meta of Age of Sigmar. They should be the old point costs, and then Nighthaunt just looks a lot better as an army. There's GW. I know you watch this, Mr. Ben Johnson or whomever. So take note. Grimghast Reapers did nothing wrong. Maybe it was Nagash, my boy, but you've also punished him on OBR as well. So, like, that's just bring Grimghast Reaper points back down. Continue, man.
Talking about Hex Race again. That was the big thing that I really hated that they changed about them, that really put me off them, was the getting rid of their Reap like Corn ability. The getting rerolls to hit against 5 or more models. I think they should have kept that. That would have made them, like, then they still could have been a good cavalry unit. Like, they could have dealt with those units, the screens or whatever. Because a 4-up to hit is really bad. I think they should have either kept Reap like Corn, so they reroll hit rolls, or made them a 3-up to hit. I think that's what.
No,
what
I
hurt
think
them.
I think you keep it at the 4, but you give them Reaper like Corn to keep the consistency with the scythes. And then they have it's consistency with the scythes, because this is when you have a scythe, you reap like corn. Like that is how it goes. Keep it consistent across the entire game. The fact that they don't have it is inconsistent and is offensive to me.
Well, the Khan Wraiths have got it. The Black Coach has it with the Khan Wraith on the Black Coach.
Though he doesn't have the hero keyword.
Actually, that's a good point. People complain about that. I've got a good counterpoint to that.
Okay, go on.
It doesn't take up a hero slot.
And we established at the beginning that we want 6 heroes in this army.
Exactly. So if you want your Black Coach and then you're losing a hero spot to have it, I don't know. Unless you make it something like Gotrek, where he's a hero but he's not. Where he doesn't take up a slot.
I'm going to throw this by you, and I want to know if you salivate over this or not. I've always thought the Black Coach should be a terrain piece that could fight you. And let me unpack this, okay? Because this is at the forefront of us suddenly starting to get terrain pieces and stuff like that. I thought that the Black Coach should be this thing that haunts around the battlefield. And so you kind of pick a terrain piece and then the Black Coach, and then you set it up, within X inches of it, right? Whatever makes it work on its base size or whatever, and then it haunts out from the terrain piece, and that was how the whole thing worked. And so it's this it can't be attacked, and you can look at its damage profile that scales up and stuff, and just pick a good median of it. But it should just be you haunt a terrain piece, and then you set up the Black Coach within blah of it on turn 1 in the hero phase. Not even during the terrain deployment stuff. You should just be okay, and then during the hero phase of the Nighthaunt player, within a saw of a hero of a terrain piece, they set up
a bit like the Bone Type Nexus, like how it does an ability.
Yes. Where you just and then with your hero phase, you haunt a terrain piece with a black Coach. And it actually has an attack profile and everything, because you're being haunted by this crazy ass Ichabod Crane from Sleepy Hollow, just rolling through and smashing your army and stuff. I thought that would just be the coolest shit ever. It's just their terrain piece is this mobile haunting. I'm just I want that so hard.
That would be cool. Yeah, you could pick a terrain piece, and any unit that moves over it gets grabbed by ghosts, so it's half movement, and then you roll a dice for each model in that unit. On a 6, it takes a mortal wound.
No, totally go through the attack profile too. It literally, the terrain piece charges you and shit. I go that I love crazy rules. I don't want the bend the knee of Cetra and all that stuff back from the previous game, but I love I actually really, really like Dark Prophecy on Archaon. Well, you put the dice and I like shit like that. I think Nighthaunt could have had because Nighthaunt is already in my mind kind of the destruction army of our faction, because they're a little wacky and they're a little random. They little bit of horde, and how they feel they fit together. They feel a little bit more destruction than pure death. And death is
it's kind of weird that they never came out with a piece, because Legions and Nagash were out before, and they had their graveyards, and then you got
not a terrain piece. They're a point in space.
And you had but you know what I mean. Technically, it's like a terrain piece, but then you've got your Idnef Deakim that were out beforehand. They had their terrain piece, and then you've got all these other terrain pieces. It was kind of weird that this book came out and didn't have it. I suppose Stormcast came out sort of at the same
but
time,
they're
without it. But yeah, it was kind of weird that they didn't come out with it.
I would have loved to have the Black Coach, and you actually put the Black Coach on the table, because this whole thing is because look at how sweet this is, and then you're and so you just put it within 3 inches of a terrain piece on the table. That is your terrain piece, and it can overlap and everything, and you're just boom, here's your terrain piece, and then you literally go out from that terrain piece and haunt people turn to turn and stuff. I just thought that'd be awesome. I'm that felt like a missed opportunity, because So that's where but this is just a me thing. I'm wrong. Yeah. We will never get this. But this is my wild speculation.
It is it's a cool model, but it does a lot of cool stuff. Like it does, it has some good abilities, and it actually is a good, to a piece in the game.
Its points are probably right about now.
Yeah.
Like I like love an aggressive cost to go down another 10 points, but like it does some work. So I'm gonna have you riff about
Well,
Black Coach.
well,
And
I don't know. It's just it's a bit swingy, but like you got to get the levels up on it. But it's a model you want to keep. You want to keep it back for the first turn or two. Like you don't want to be pushing it up the board turn one because it can die.
a
Like
segue out of Black Coach though is Nighthaunt do feel a bit pillow fisted. How do you compensate for how pillow fisted they do feel? And I think you talk about MSU a little bit. So Black Coach. Black Coach and then pillow fisted. There's your segue. I gotta use the restroom again.
No, you're right. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really agree with the pillow fisted argument. I think we do a lot of chip damage with most of our stuff, but a lot of our stuff we have mortal wounds, we have good rend. Our heroes do D3 damage with rend. But it just depends. Like I think if you're taking lots of hex trace, yes, they can be pillow fisted. I think chain rasps are pillow fisted, but you're not using chain rasps as an attacking unit, so you don't want to be having to rely on them to put out damage. Your Mongol and stuff is definitely not pillow fisted. Spirit hosts can pump out mortal wounds. I don't know. I don't agree with the fact that people think they're pillow fisted. I think if you play the army right, you keep your buffs in range. They could do a lot of work, and then they're pushing forward, going to battle shock phase. The fact that we are neg1 bravery to your opponent, the fact that Lady Olander makes, if you fail that battle shock test, she makes another model run if you're within 12 of her in the battle shock phase. And then Shrieker hosts actually making opponents take battle shock. I think we might not do a lot of damage sometimes, but it's in the following phases, like your battle shock phases, and then even the hero phase, we can do a lot of mortal wounds with Olander and spells or whatever it is, and we have a little bit of shooting. Like Olander's shooting is amazing. It's a 10-inch bubble. She can actually run and do it as well because it's an ability. It's not a shooting attack, so you can run her up the board and affect every unit within 10 inches of her can take D3 mortal wounds if you roll well. So, look, I don't agree that they're pillow fisted. I think there's a lot of output of wounds and mortal wounds available to the army. I was just saying about even Lady Olander's shooting ability. Like it's a 10-inch bubble, she can run and shoot. So it's affecting bravery in that bubble, so she can throw out a lot of D3 mortal wounds around an area. I don't know. I don't agree that they're pillow fisted. I think it's all about maximizing who you got to put a lot of stuff into certain units, and you're doing a lot of mortal wounds. Like the heroes have got good rend, good damage, and then battle shock phase I was just explaining is the place where you're doing a lot of your damage as well.
So G-Dad, wait, I thought Feck was the Destruction Army for Death. No, they're the Monster Truck Army for Death. It's not the same thing. They're different. So you're making up the damage by essentially like maximizing your sort of coverage and your buffs, right? Like that's
yeah.
And that comes back to like this whole notion at the really like sort of onset of this whole discussion is like you got to lean a little bit more MSU with your army versus like going all in on big point centers and like a big 40 block of this or a 30 block of that. Like you got to really
because I think one of the biggest points of this army is having that bit of MSU means that you can be putting stuff around the board. Like you can make your opponent do stuff they don't want to do, and that's what it's all about. If you just take big units of stuff and plonk it down on the board, your opponent goes, well, I just got to push up the board, I've got to go up there and deal with that, and I'll win the game. Whereas if you take smaller units, drop them around the board on their flanks behind their army, anywhere on the board, it means that they have to go sideways, they have to go backwards, they have to go places they don't want to go, which means they're not scoring points, and it means your army survives longer. They can't just push their whole army and kill your whole army in one go. It's just not possible, and that's probably the best way to explain it is you want to be making your opponent do stuff they don't want to do. Is probably the biggest
you want to
key.
force the bad decision. You want to force the bad decision. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
and pretty much make both decisions. Make no matter what decision they make is a bad decision.
Yes. Perfect.
Is how I sort of explain it with Nighthaunt.
No. I think you've nailed it. We haven't quantified this stuff in terms of like strategies of Age of Sigmar. We know about hammers and anvils. Like, we don't know about like tempo plays and like decision making, like sort of trees of like making your opponent like make decisions. And since we do play a dice game, every time you make an opponent make a decision, even if it's the right decision, they have dice against them. They have to roll well at those decision trees. And if you have only bad decisions to make and you have dice that have to roll well, you're coming out ahead. When you're playing a movement, like, what's guaranteed in Age of Sigmar? Movement. That is the only guarantee of Age of Sigmar, is where you move to. And Nighthaunt kind of guarantees its movement. That is its superpower, in my opinion. Like, I can be half my army, I've got 15 units, and 7 of them can be where I want them to be, and then move. Right?
Yeah.
And the other 8, because we round down, like, are going to deploy and then move and charge and do stuff. Like, that is the superpower of Nighthaunt for me. Is they guarantee their flying ethereal movement someplace on the table, and then you force your opponent to make bad decisions, and you have more tools than I think our current narrative of Age of Sigmar competition gives them credit for, because they do have some damage there. They do have some mortal wounds. They have the minus bravery. They can deny your precious inspiring presence. Like, they have a lot of stuff going on for them. I also think that in Australia you have this like sort of advantage of being like the Galapagos meta, where you do, like you mentioned, like you play against the same armies and stuff, is like a little bit of like a downside. Pulling some TTS, boom, yeah, cool. You get to play against the range of stuff that maybe your local meta isn't playing. But you also have people like playing. I think in your case, like, you have someone playing an army on a deeper level more consistently, because this is how it is. This is a lot of passion players playing their armies passionately in a sort of constricted, zone. And I think that's awesome. I think that's why you can take freaking Nighthaunt to 5-1. And I think more people can play this army really well.
I think so. I think that it's there to be able to, like, as I keep saying, they're a toolbox army. I think they've got the tools to be able to finish well at tournaments. I don't see why they can't, and I just think the only reason we don't see them finishing well at tournaments is the fact that we've got new players coming to tournaments playing them. Like, they're not. And then look, there's a couple of good players. Like, we've had a couple of good Nighthaunt players in Australia the last 2 years. Nick Hohen and Ash McEwen. Both, like, Ash McEwen made Masters last year, and most of his games were with Nighthaunt, and it qualified him for Masters. So he didn't take Nighthaunt to Masters, but the army can be played well. And the fact that we've dropped so many points now, like, do you want to talk about points?
Yeah, no, then now. This is literally the right here in my notes that you can't see. Now I have a triple highlighted right now. I was actually in the process of highlighting it. This is way to segue for me. Thank you.
Like the points drops this army have received has been huge. Like, I've got the book in front of me, so when they were released. So you got stuff like Kurdos, who was 220 points when the book was released. I think he's now 180 or 170. So, I probably should look at that too. But anyway, he's dropped at least 40 points. You got Lady Onda, she's dropped 40 points.
Real quick about Kurdos, his attack profile is sick.
It's really good.
He's got a really strong attack profile.
Yep.
And bringing him sub 200 as a person who can go out and probably kill most other heroes in the game for his, quite frankly, absurd ability.
Yeah, he's 5 up. Yeah, it never goes off, but it's really good.
You're fucking with a resource that should be sacrosanct in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, some armies these days, it's a shit ability, like against Grots or something that have fucking 30 command points. Who cares?
Yeah, but like you don't play Grots in our meta. You only play Grots in Australia.
So I played against. We had a games day a month ago, and I played against the Legion of the Gash player. And he's only fairly new to the game, but I brought my Nighthaunt and I brought Kurdos. And the first 3 turns of the game, I stole a command point off him, and it fucked his whole army. Like he couldn't do anything.
No, you can't, because you can't re-roll, and you got to pocket the 1 to bring back a unit. You got to pocket the 1 for the Endless Legions. So he's not re-rolling ones to making his whole army battle shock immune, re-rolling ones to hit, re-rolling ones to save.
It wasn't a Nagash.
Okay, fair enough.
Nagash, but it was like he had a dragon and stuff. But it was the fact, he couldn't bring back that unit. He couldn't spend his command ability to give extra attacks or whatever it was, and it was just. I'm like, I felt sorry for him in the end because it's just like, I'm sorry, dude, this never happens. He never rolls a 5 up. This 5 up never goes off. But yeah, no. Kurdos for 180 or whatever he is, I think he's just. I'm just gonna bring up.
I'm gonna DM you later if you were wrong about this, because you you DM about I had a couple things wrong on the last couple.
Yeah, he's 180, so he's gone.
Perfect.
He's dropped 40. Lady Hollander, she's only 200 now. She was 240, so there's another 40 points. So there's 80 points you're saving already. There's a unit of 10 chain rafts.
Mm-hmm.
You've got stuff like the Black Coach. It was 280 points when it was released. It's now 220, so there's 60 points.
It can go to another 20 GW. 20 more, and we're good.
The Dread Scythe Harridans, they were 90 points each. They're now 70 points for 5. So for a unit of 10, you've saved 40 points. And that's why I really like Harridans now. They're actually really good for their cost. So they were 180 for 10. Now they're only 140. And I think 140 for 10 Harridans is really good. 3 attacks each, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, neg 1, and 6s to wound at 2 damage, I think is really good. And then they have that ability which is sometimes good, sometimes shit, hardly ever goes off, but you roll against opponent's bravery if you equal it or beat it, that unit's neg 1 to hit. And it's not just hitting against those Harridans, it's just neg 1 to hit.
So something that we're not seeing enough of in Age of Sigmar right now is multi-charges. This is something that we're starting to see a little bit more of, I think, as we're sort of... I think the longer game is around, the more informed you make your player base, which is something I aim to do, everybody. The more, like, that you want that higher, like, skill floor that people start out at, that base rung, that base stair they start out. Multi-charges is something we're not seeing enough at, where like people like charge 2 things into the thing and then they like stack the way they attack, and this is something that is going to pay dividends in the multi-charge development of skill play. With that sort of like disposable unit of just 60 points or 80 points or whatever, or what I'm sorry. You're just like, fine, I'll have one of them. I have to have one for my battalion anyway. Like, you throw them as a multi-charge with your already penalty to bravery and conceivably a second penalty to bravery from like another hero or something around, like you start to see some like really cool like extra plays begin to develop with this army. Sorry, I just wanted to mention the multi-charge.
And even like Mirmon Banshees, like they used to be 80 points for 4, now they're only 70 points for 4.
Absurd.
Like that.
I thought they were worth it 80. It was just
I was taking a unit of 12 in a list a couple of times. I find they're very swingy. But I've been in the Shrieker host. I've been just taking 2 units of 4 and putting them in the underworlds and dropping them down in my opponent's half of the board near their casters. They get +1 to unbind, like with 4 of them. So a +1 unbind is really good. It adds to the army's just the unbindability capabilities sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, look, So my Shrieker host list, for example, I've got 2 units of 10 Dread Scythe Harridans. So there's 20, 40, 80 points I've saved. I've got my Kurdos, so there's another 40. There's 120. Lady Islanders, another 40. There's 160 points. And I've got the Mongol, who's 270. I think he was like 300 points when this book came out, or 310, somewhere around there. So another 30. So I've saved over 200 points just on this list alone from when the book came out.
I had you at 200 before you mentioned the Mongol.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, with the 2 units of 10 Banshees, yeah. The 2 units of 4 Banshees, yeah, that's right. 210 points.
Yep.
So, yeah, so, like, and that's what I was saying before. Like, when this book came out, that 200-odd points, you're losing so much from your army. Like, you're losing heroes. You're losing these extra units that 200 points doesn't sound like much, but it actually adds up. Like, it does add up when you're taking out units.
Like, even just in the current context of, you could buy a black coach in a unit. You could buy a Kurdos in a unit of battle line. Like,
yeah,
like this you can do that. That it's such a significant boost to this army. Based on where the points are right now, and I don't think the points are wrong. By the way, like everything, everything is trended in the correct direction. Nothing's OP. Nothing is out of bounds. Like, there's so much army here, and I think that's the thing, is like, there's so much army to embrace with Nighthaunt. You gotta learn your own baseline of decision making and your own sort of like micromanagement because there's so many abilities, there's so many holy withins, there's so many like triggers that happen, even like when you kill this thing in the if something dies in the battle shock phase, then this thing happens. Like, there's so many different things that occur across this army. But if you embrace it and you truly like lean in and try to pick that all up, and like you play for excellence and you play for a period of time, I think Nighthaunt is one of the, I'm going to say it here, G-Dad, and you can freaking at me again, I think this is one of the most underrated armies in the entire game of Age of Sigmar.
I totally agree. I honestly think, I've had a lot of people, even on TTS, be talk about their new top tier armies or whatever, and I'm like, I could beat that army if Nighthaunt. And they're like, oh, bullshit. Like, they're like, nah. And you know what? The good thing is now I'm like, all right, let's jump on TTS. I'll play against you, and I'll show you what Nighthaunt can do. And you can. It's, you could be playing against someone from America that's been trash talking Nighthaunt, and you're like, well, hang on a sec.
Rocco, we see you.
And definitely Rocco.
Definitely Rocco.
So yeah, it's it's honestly, man, I think it's a better army than people think it is. I think it has a lot of legs. It can do a lot in the current meta. It's very good.
I can't stress enough the inflation, the battle plans, the fact that there are more battle plans now, the fact that your battle line capture for more, the fact that there are more objectives, the net objectives of Age of Sigmar for the last, 3 battle tomes has gone up in terms of like what we realistically see. You talk about the MSU of this army, like, you want to be running more and more units. Like, this army has just gotten better with the new GHB. There's more objectives. This army can cover them. You can threaten other people's objectives by just putting something in the underworlds. My OBR army has a really hard time dealing with this army.
For sure.
Catapults are my greatest strengths, and I can't screen them from your just random ass unit of chain rasps that are just going to show up and like and just like hey, we're in combat with you now. I'm like, look at your 80 points negating my 200 points that force multiplier say that I have to force engagement across the table, because now you get to dictate the pace of the combat because I'm not faster than you. I don't fly. I have to literally move 20 to 40 more tech guards someplace, and like, you got a unit that just...
You don't have the bodies to protect your own objectives.
Yeah, I can't stay back. I have no keep out.
You can't be... you can't protect, and you can't push up the board to take objectives. And Nighthaunt makes you do, like, it really makes you do that. So it makes it hard for you.
Hi, wifey.
No, it's my daughter.
Oh, hi, daughter.
So yeah, look, I just think the more I play the army, and there's stuff like
This is amazing. Usually, I'm ganked my own daughter. Hello. No, this is beautiful. What's going on?
Should go in. But you've got stuff like people worry about. So as we were talking about earlier, with I never really touched on this point, but
Double daughter gank plus doggo, the best gank. No, this is fine. Hello. I see your two beautiful daughters. No, this is fine, man.
Yeah.
So are you in a garage?
Yeah, it's like it's my hobby shed. It's
Your hobby
room,
shed.
actually.
Your hobby shed.
So
That's
yeah,
so
like
bad.
what the point I was trying to touch on was, which I missed earlier, was our access to healing in the army is huge. So like the Spirit Torment, people don't realize in its War Scroll it just says you heal D3 wounds to a unit if you've killed 3 models. It doesn't specify it's got to be any type of unit, so you can heal your heroes with your Spirit Torment. So you've got that, and you've got the Battle Shock phase heal from if they fail.
Right.
And like Lady Hollander heals. There's spells in the spell lore to heal. Like if someone doesn't kill your hero in one turn of shooting or whatever people are worried about, that hero's just healed.
Well, this is where that redundancy. That's where that redundancy really comes into like compile against your opponent. This is part of that skill floor of your army. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So no, that was pretty much the point there. With I'm never too worried about those armies that people say, oh, what happens if you lose this model or that model? I'm like, well, I don't really care. Like I've built most of my lists that it doesn't matter too much. Like it does matter, but it doesn't matter to the point where I'm going to lose the game. So I do need to go out. Hey, Floss, can you go open the door?
It was amazing.
Oh, I'll get that.
Usually I get usually I'm the one that.
Oh, that's right then.
No, usually I'm the one ganked by babbies. This is amazing.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So that was that point about the healing and not having to worry about too much sniping, but obviously it's always going to happen.
Well, I mean, I want to talk about weak matchups versus strong matchups in the current meta.
Yep.
This is a really good reset point. Science has just shown up and said, how does the Nighthaunt tome hold up these days? Very good, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's a good segue. Thank you, chat gang. Strong arms versus weak arms. Like you're talking your top 3 are KO, Seraphon, Tzeentch, right? And I want to put this out there and I preface this. A lot of armies lose to those armies right now. That's why they're the S tier. Okay?
Yes. Look, I think we can beat any army out there. I'm just going to put that out there.
Bold statement. Go on.
Not saying that we will beat them. I say that we can. We do have the tools to do it. But I think our biggest weakness that I've played against in recent times is Tzeentch and Flamer spam and Pink Horror spam. Just because we sort of can struggle to get through those wounds.
It's okay. OBR sucks against that too. So, which is supposedly our best army in the meta right now. So,
yeah. But I think and Seraphon, obviously we struggle against their shooting as well, but we can beat Seraphon. I think Tzeentch is probably our hardest match. They're the ones I have the most trouble with personally. Yeah. But then as far as then it's sort of hard with hard matchups because I think some of the really old tomes could be hard matchups for us as well. But
Nurgle,
I don't really play against
I think Nurgle's hard. I think Nurgle's because Nurgle's gone towards like the BK penalties to hit thing, and I think that can be a problem for our army.
Especially like Witherstave, stuff like that. But those there's no point really talking about those battle tones because I don't think they're really the issue.
They're not long for this world.
But I think as far as good matchups go, I think just about all of the new books can be good matchups for us. Because as I was saying earlier, a lot of the new books are pointed towards having Rend. They have, mortal wounds, which mortal wounds don't really bother us. They do, but they're not huge. I don't know. I think we're good matchups. LRL, like I think we smash LRL.
Yeah, smash LRL. No, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
No, I look at the matchups like the new matchups. I think you beat LRL pretty, not handily, because you got to get to that skill floor. But once you know how to play this army and you've built a proper list, I don't know what LRL can do to beat you. Like, even if they're bringing the tech NATO and stuff, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just like gonna pull off a few models here and here and here and here, and then like I'm still gonna swarm your like 90 wound army. Congratulations, and I have way more mobility than you're capable of. Babby Gank, the best ganks on RantCast. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
I guess like ogres, whatever, even like Sons of Behemoth, like I don't think they can deal with your chaff lines. You can force them.
I've played a couple of games against Sons, and I've played probably the two worst battle plans against them. One was 3 Places of Power, or whatever it's called, and the other one was Total Commitment. And Total Commitment, I don't know if you know how Sons of Behemoth work, but the Kraken Eater that kicks the objective, if they kick their own objective onto
yours, you can't score the extra. Yeah,
but they can. So they score 3 points for it because it's on the opponent's side. So as soon as they kick that objective over, it's game over. You can't win.
That's a GHB.
They're scoring 3.
I'm sorry, that's an FAQ. That's an FAQ thing. Like, they're either going to answer that, and that's how they're supposed to, or whatever. We'll see.
Yeah, so I lost to that, but in both games I've played them, I've pretty much wiped their army, like, both times. So we've got the damage to kill them. We're just, in those sort of those battle plans, it's hard to beat them. But obviously, in most other battle plans, you're going to win. Like, anything with multiple objectives, I think you win the game hands down.
Even if it's just like chain rasp, and you just kind of stagger the units, they just can't get through it. Like, you're just
that's it. That's actually a learning curve I'm going to have to learn with Sons of Behemoth, because I'm used to doing those screens, but with Sons of Behemoth, they just walk over you.
They can walk over your screen.
It's
more about the outside of 4. Yeah, it's about the outside of 4 or whatever. Yep.
Yeah, so that's something I need to learn playing that army. I think a lot of people need to learn that. But yeah, I think Sons of Behemoth aren't too much of an issue for us. I don't think even KO. Like, I think we're a good counter to KO because we can get into their boats, and they can't just be jumping around the board away from us because we just drop down.
You have enough. You have enough. Yeah, you have enough coverage everywhere. This is a high wound density army. I think that's the other thing that we didn't really mention is like, Nighthaunt tend to have a lot of wounds across the army. Like you're above 100 on most builds,
and they're unrendable wounds too.
Yeah,
so it works out to be a lot more as well. Yeah,
and most of the new armies have moved towards like high rend. Like KO is a rend 2 shooty army. The City of Sigmar build with Iron Drakes is rend 2 or rend 3 if you're being the niche build. Like a lot of like high rend armies out there that are you counting on that rend to do extra damage, and you're like, I'm glad you invested the points in that because it means nothing against me. You got the bonus scoring objectives, bonus scoring on your battle line, which is, I don't think there's an army with a higher quality of battle line in the game right now than Nighthaunt.
Yeah,
I mean from Spirit Host
as well.
Yeah, Spirit Host to Chain Rasp to Grimghast Reapers to I don't think there's an army. Hex Races, I think, might even be battle line. Like, I don't think there's an army. I don't think there's an army with a higher quality of battle line in the entire game of Age of Sigmar. This isn't me being a death homer, as I often am. I don't think there is an army that has a higher quality of battle line. A higher range.
I think you're pretty right.
Plus, that like inherent allegiance is that they get to deep strike. There isn't an army that can just bring that value to the battle line that this army can. They're not there. I want the Ren battle line. I want the Wound battle line. I want the like they just crush that, and all of them fly.
And most armies are only taking battle line for battle line attacks, aren't they?
Yep.
Like,
yes. Except for Mortag. My Mortag are not attacks.
Yeah. Look, I think Look, I think death in general, you're not taking battle line as attacks. Like battle line in death, they're
It's the
always
back.
good. I always make
It's the backbone of your army.
yeah.
Bone.
Like it was always like I always took 40 units of 40 skeletons because they were just so fucking good. Like battle line in death is just always been really good. I think like. And it's always, but as you say, I think Nighthaunt have a bigger variety, and they're all fairly good, and they're good at what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a strong strength. So I've got to ask you now that we've kind of progressed through, and I've usually started these whole. I've started the Meph's Merry Month of Death, asking why death, but I want to ask you this now at the tail end of the adventure. Why death?
Yeah.
Why did you gravitate towards death armies?
To start with, it was I had ogres, and I loved the look of them, and I bought some skeletons and that for a display board I was doing with my ogres, and I got the models in my hand. I'm like, these are fucking amazing. Like these look so cool. Like I love the mod, like just the skeleton. I'm like, this is so cool. So that started my death love way back. That was at the start of Age of Sigmar. And then playing ogres back at the start of Age of Sigmar were really boring. Like it was, they had no synergies, they had nothing. It was just you walk them up the board, you attack, you kill your opponent. That was it. Death was all about, you got to be wholly within for this. You get skeletons get +1 to hit if they're within 18 of a hero. You get spells. Like it was, death just to me was like, oh wow, this whole world opened up of how to play the game. Like it wasn't just combat.
Synergies.
It wasn't just movement. Yeah, it wasn't just movement combat. It was hero phase. It was synergies. It was movement. It was shooting. Like, oh, not really shooting, but it was.
I love it. No, death. We don't shoot. We don't.
No shooting. And then it was retreat. Like you playing destruction, you don't retreat, but death, you retreat. It's just. Death is just it's so much more to the game. It's not and that's why I enjoy it so much. I have to think when I play the army. Any army that makes me think a lot when I play it, I enjoy it so much more, and that's why I think I'm enjoying Nighthaunt so much right now, because there's just so much thinking involved with the army, and it just makes the game, for me personally, it makes it way more enjoyable. Makes me get something out of it.
Well, this is that twofold of like your opponent still is playing a game against you. Can you sharpen it?
I don't have one though. Sorry.
No. The death is like Nighthaunt specifically is twofold, because it feels like your opponent is still engaged in the game with you, and you're trying to outthink your opponent. And I think that that's something that gets lost in some of these other armies. The worst part about Beasts of Chaos is the best part of Beasts of Chaos is like every game is in my hands as Beasts of Chaos. Because like I have to think, and I think Nighthaunt has a lesser punishing value of Beasts of Chaos right now, because like Beasts of Chaos is like, if I make the wrong decision, I have lost. Nighthaunt, if I make the wrong decision, I'm still in this, and I think that's a great place to be. Where like you're trying to out. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, like with Nighthaunt, you can still retreat over lines, or if you get stuck in combat where you don't want to be, or
right.
As you said, and we got the high bravery, so you're not if your unit gets hit, it's not running to battle shock very much.
It's the forgiving thinking person's army. Like you're still every game is dictated by your decisions. This was something that like old Seraphon did, actually, by the way. Like old Seraphon was like, every game I have decisions to make to where I could possibly win it. And new Seraphon is like not that, but like old Seraphon was like, every game I'm like making decisions to possibly win this. And I think Nighthaunt is doing that, but like the Goldilocks zone of that.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a false positive. It's not a total phantom. Sorry for the pun. Like, you really do have a stake in the game all 5 turns for the most part. Like, you really, really are making decisions throughout the whole game to try to win at the end of it all. And there are so few armies. This is what makes Nighthaunt unique to me. This is why I love this army. Like, it just, you're engaged on all the phases of the game with your opponent the whole time. And I think that makes Nighthaunt pretty special.
The good thing about it too, there's not just one build. Like, there's not just this one build army. Like, honestly, I could write probably right now. I could show you 5 or 6 different lists that I personally think would be competitive lists, but they're all fairly completely different. Like, I think the army is good like that. Like, I've got a few mates that play Cities of Sigmar, right, and they've just got the Iron Drakes or whatever, and they've got a bridge. Like, every Cities army just has this bridge. You cast the bridge, move it up, everything moves up, shoots, whatever. It's like, to me, that's boring. Like, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. Like, you don't have any different strategy. It's just, I just cast this bridge, I put it in the middle of the board, I move up, I shoot everything. Like, they enjoy that. That's their fun. It's their hobby. You do that. But for me, that's boring. Like, I feel that I like to be able to have a different option each game. I like to be able to do different stuff. And Nighthaunt does that. Like, you can set up different stuff in the underworlds if you need, or, like, it just, you can play it so differently each time.
All right, cool,
compared to other armies. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, so I'm going to try to go rapid fire here with command traits. Is there a standout command trait?
Ruler of the Spirit Host.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Ruler of the Spirit Host. So you're bringing. Just hang on a sec. Hey, guys.
No, you're good.
So Ruler of the Spirit Host. Start of the hero phase. You pick a unit within 9 inches, a summonable unit, and you bring back D3 slain models. So really good for Spirit Hosts. Really good for even Hex Grace, because they're multi-wound models. What? Yeah.
Are they pushing the models around? Are they fighting ghosts and stuff?
There's a TV in the room. They've just turned the telly on and they want it.
Bluey? Is it Bluey?
So yeah. No, they've just got. Where is it? There it is.
Fantastic.
This is my hobby space.
Sorry, no, like your hobby space is way better than mine. Like, you have a whole couch and shit. I have a shitty futon. No, that's amazing. Sorry.
So yeah, command trait is Ruler of the Spirit Host is pretty much all I ever take. Yeah, that's the best option there.
So do you have a second tier? Talked about Hatred of the Living before, but.
Oh yeah. Hatred of Living's good if you want to just take a bit of fun with
If you want a Kevin.
Yeah, if you want Kevin. It's not really good on any other hero, because obviously it doesn't go on named heroes. So our other... maybe like your Knight of Shrouds, if you get him buffed up with extra damage. But you're putting a lot of effort into him for Hatred of Living. The other ones are... They're not really worth worrying about.
The hot take for command traits... in the current landscape.
Yeah, that was a command trait. No?
Sorry, spell lores. We're on spell lores now. The spells to look out for. Look, I had to grab my beer and admire the fact that you're a family man. Okay.
There is one of the other command traits. If depending on your local meta, there's one called Cloaked in Shadow, which is you subtract 1 from hit rolls from shooting. So with Lookout Sir, you neg 2 to shooting. So if you've got a shooting heavy meta, yeah, that might be worth taking. Spell laws, I think the best spell in our spell book is Shade Mist. So you cast it on one of your units. That unit's neg 1 to wound. That's from shooting, combat.
It's a cast value of 6 too, which is pretty castable in our spell dom meta. Yeah.
Yep. All the other ones are okay. I think Soul Cage is probably your next best one. It makes a opponent fight last at the combat phase.
Not bad.
Else, just hang on. Give me the remote. Hang on, just.
No, you're good, man. So what's awesome right now is usually my children come bursting into the stream, and they like flip tables and stuff, and they grab like steel chairs and they start hitting. And, like, one of them goes off the top rope, and then they bring the elbow down off the top rope. So, this is adorable. Yeah. We were talking about, I think we moved on to artifacts now. Of, like, I think we mentioned the Shrieking Blade. Or, no, not the Shrieking Blade. Shadow's Edge. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. So Shadow's Edge is really good on Kevin for the D3 mortal wounds. most of the other heroes it's shit on because what it does is it stops the attack sequence. So if you've got your Knight of Shrouds that does 2 damage normally, doing mortal wounds and it stops the attack sequence, you might only roll a 1 for D3 damage. It's meh.
So if you're not being cute with Kevin, what are you taking if you're not being cute with Kevin?
Yeah, probably not taking it. Then if you're taking a Knight of Shrouds, you're probably taking Balefile Blade, so it adds 1 to their damage, so they end up 3 damage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Slitter's pretty good, but it's situational as well. It's you got to use it when you pile in. So it means if you've multi-charged a unit, it means the other unit then gets hit back, so it's not so good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the one that I always take is Pendant of Fell Wind. So you add 3-inch move to everything wholly within 12 of that model, which is huge because our army can fly. And getting plus 3-inch move. I think the shortest move we have is 6 inches. So 9-inch move is really good.
Yeah, good stuff.
There's a lot of artifacts, and a lot of them are really good. You could go through all of them and find a use for them all, actually.
Really? All right, right on.
So, yeah.
No.
Then they've got the artifacts for the Guardian of Souls. One adds +1 to casting, which is okay. The other one gives you extra models back when you cast a heal spell. And the other one, which is really good, Light Shard of Harvest Moon, it's reroll hit rolls for a unit wholly within 12 of the bearer. Oh, for all units, actually.
I like that one.
Hits.
I like this one a lot. I think it's really good.
But it just then means you're not taking Pendant of Fell Wind or Shadow's Edge or whatever.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Babby? Come on. No, this is... Look, RantCast is about family, even though I swear a whole lot. How's it going?
That's all right. She can't hear, so
she has like a tennis shoe or something there that she's about to hit you with.
Yeah, she's put a shoe on. So yeah, that's pretty much the artifacts.
I think that's good. We already touched on like the battalions of worth. You're a big fan of which battalion?
Shrieker Host. Shroud Guard's probably another one I really like. It gives that 5-up save to your Blade Geist Revenants instead of a 6-up. What else is there? You've got the Death Riders, which you were talking about, which isn't too bad.
I think that's more of a Grand Alliance Death pick than a, because that actually pulls out the Nighthaunt double charge thing into Grand Alliance Death, and I think that's the tech there. I think that's where that accelerates for me, is like bringing that into Grand Alliance Death and doing just like random generic death stuff with a double a charge phase attack and then a following attack, and then potentially having a Van Hels on top of it, so you can have a triple attack with it. That's so like I don't even consider that a Nighthaunt thing at this point.
No, but they don't get the Wave of Terror if it's Grand Alliance Death.
Oh right, they don't charge. Yeah. No. No. Death Rider says, isn't that how that works? Death Rider says.
It gives you +1 to the. It says if this battalion is part of a Nighthaunt army, this ability replaces the Wave of Terror battle trait for all units in the battalion.
Death Riders.
This does not. If you make an unmodified charge roll, a 9+ for a unit from this battalion, 5 meter after you complete the charge. This does not stop. Oh, sorry. If it is a part of it, yeah. So if you're not, so sorry, you do get it.
Yeah, so you get their. This is some sick tech. So
Then you've got other ones like the Condemned. If you're taking Chain Rasp hordes.
Hey! I just want to say, look, I was wrong a couple times before. You were judging my RantCast, but like, oh man, sometimes I'm right.
Who plays Death? Honestly, who plays Grand Alliance Death?
People who really, really, really want to play with like just an assortment of ghosts and skeletons and shit. Yeah. No, I'm serious. Like this is the Castlevania army. This is why I'm rocking my Castlevania shirt. But no. Continue.
Yeah. So then you got Condemned, which is 2 units Chain Ras, Spirit Torment, and Chain Gas. You reroll and failed hit rolls, so can make a unit of 40 Chain Ras hit pretty hard. There's still 4s and 4s.
This is where that like we see some double battalions come through. Is I feel like people take the condemned plus thing and then they're just trying to get their drops down too low, and I really do, and I just want to revisit this one more time. I think that you don't really give a shit about drops when you're playing Nighthaunt because you're already in Galaxy Brain mode, and like your opponent's going to try to dictate the pace, and fine, let them, because you have enough tools to deal with it. You can screen properly. You can hide your shit under the ground. Like, kids are a chaos faction, or are they destruction? They're a gold tier faction. They are both. Thank you.
Who's that?
That is science to be done. In chat there.
Then you got Chain Guard, which it's alright. It's 2 units Chain Ras, a Guardian of Souls. It just gives you an extra D6 slain models back when you cast your lure light spell, whatever it is, spectral lure. Which you still got to get the spell off, and in this meta can be hard. So paying for a battalion that gives you that bonus is like.
Am I wrong to not count on my spells in Nighthaunt right now? Because I'm like spells or whatever. Like I don't even.
Yeah, look, it's only against certain armies. Don't get me wrong. And that's why, like my current list, Shrieker Host list, I've only got Lady Islander, so I've only got 2 casts, 2 spells. If they go off, they go off. If they don't, they don't. Like it's not. I'm not hinging my whole plans on getting Shade Mist off or. Do you know what I mean? It's there. If it does go off, it's really good. And the armies that it does go off against will normally go off anyway. So that you need it off against. So if you're going against hard hitting armies, they're not big spell casting armies. So that neg 1 to wound is really good, and you're going to get it off. But anyway, and then you've got Execution Horde. This is one a lot of people play. I don't personally. I've tried to play it. I'm not a huge fan. It's a Lord Executioner and 3 units of Spirit Hosts.
That feels too high for me.
You subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target the Lord Executioner, but he has to be within 6 of one of those units of Spirit Host. In addition, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by the Lord Executioner. If anyone's looked at the Lord Executioner's his profile, it's pretty. His War Scroll's pretty shit. Like he doesn't do damage. There's no point giving him +1 to hit because he does nothing in combat.
Right.
And he survives. That's all he does in this battalion is he just doesn't die.
Yeah.
Which, where is he? Like he's got 3 attacks, 3s and 3s. He's neg 2 rend, but he does 1 damage.
His model is super sweet though, because he's got the gallows up above him and everything.
Yeah. And if you roll a 6, he's a cool model. If you roll a 6 to wound, it does 3. He's doing 3 damage, but I think you're not taking him to do damage. Deathstalkers, don't even talk about that one. Oh shit.
No, it's shit.
You got Grewglaive Wraithstalkers.
Cool.
Shrieker Host, which is the one we talked about already.
This is the goods. This is the goods.
Yeah. Reroll 1s for Battle Shock, and they have to take Battle Shock. They can't ignore it unless they've got some other ability that they can't use Inspiring Presence.
Yeah, no, that's the goods. All right, dude, we're gonna close this out. I know you're So I wanted to do something. I haven't done this before. Babbies, welcome back. Welcome back, Babbies. Usually it's my kids like throwing in here. Like Chuck Moore from Strength Hammer is like, my favorite part of your podcast is when your kids ruin your podcast, and I'm like, thanks. I love that that's like a measurable statistic. And this isn't ruining. This is adorable because I try to make RantCast about like the adjacencies of Age of Sigmar, and I think that when you have like, I feel like there's this like weird thing where like you're young and you get into Warhammer, right? And you're like you're Star Yard and you mow lawns to buy a blister pack or whatever, and then you grow some and whatever, and then you kind of come back to Warhammer later on when you have a disposable income and possibly a family. And for me, that's where Warhammer really lives. Like that, I think that's beautiful. So don't feel bad or Uh,
Oh, good man.
Unit rankings. I just feel like so I've written down like here that Mirmorn Banshees, Spirit Host, Grimghast Reapers, Dreadblade Harrow, Blade Geist, Grim Hailer, Spirit Torment. Like, I think that there's a lot of like units. I just rattled off like a
Yeah,
bunch of units
they've,
that are just
they've all got a use. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so are there any auto includes? Are there any things that you need to look at? If you've been looking at Nighthaunt and you're like, I don't know if I want to get into it, or like, I think I can really do some work with Nighthaunt, but what am I missing? Is there any units that I rattled off or anything you're thinking of that we're like, you need to look at this War Scroll a second time. You need to think about how this fits into the army. I think Dreadbelly Harrow is the main one where like everybody's just like kind of an auto include. Like you kind of want that redeploy,
Yeah,
right?
you've got to build your list around certain units. So Dreadblade Harrow, I don't have in my list.
Oh, really?
Mainly because, yeah,
Okay, the mind blown right now.
only what's wrong? Only because you got to build your list around him. So if he's your general, which is where he really shines because he can spectral, what do you call it? Spectral summons around the board.
He redeploys the unit around him essentially. Yeah.
So I don't like I like my general being my Spirit Torment with ruler of Spirit Hosts and healing and bringing back Spirit Hosts.
Interesting. Cool.
That Dreadblade Arrow, I don't really have a spot for him in my list, but even having one in your list is really good because he can still jump around the board, take objectives, whatever. Like you don't have to have him as your general. Other ones, I think auto include is a Spirit Torment. I think the healing ability from that is just really good, and the reroll once to hit is really good as well. Lady Hollander, I think, is almost a auto include.
Really?
Yes, 2 caster. She does quite a lot of mortal wound output. Like her lift the veil is really good.
Oh, she mortal wounds and mortal heals too, right? Like, which is like a big deal.
She wounds, heals. She has the once per game. If there's an enemy hero within 6 inches in the hero phase, she can do her the flask, so it does D6 mortal wounds, or she can heal herself D6. And her shooting spell is really good. It's a 10-inch bubble that.
Speaking of my kids,
they're coming in.
No. Go on, man.
So another auto include in my list recently has been the Mongol. He just does everything so well. He just doesn't die. He does good debuffs. Really good if you're up against an Alpha Strike army and you want to put him behind your lines. He can protect that unit from dying, making stuff neg 1 to hit. I think Chain Wrath would definitely auto include. You need units of Chain Wrath, whether it's units of 40 or 10s. I don't think 20s or 30s are worth it. I think you're better off going 40 or 10. What else is there? You want Bluey on? Sorry. What else does auto include? Spirit Hosts are always auto include in my list as well. But that depends on how you want to play your army. I think 9 Spirit Hosts is a great auto include. And then it comes down to not auto includes, but I recommend Paradins, Grimghast Reapers. Black Coach is up there as an auto include. Kurdos is good. Kevin the Khanwraith, he's a lot of fun.
Sorry.
But you're right.
No, I had to preempt that one because it was a post bath babby, and there's all kinds of problems. All right.
All good. So I just rattled through all the auto includes, and then probably behind that is most times includes, which pretty much just about the whole army. One thing I'll say not to ever take is Glaverath Stalkers. It's a never include. Can we put that as a subject? A never include?
Never include Gravewrath. I missed how you came down on Reikener. Because I felt like Reikener for a period in time, like a year ago, was like, I wanted him in all my lists, but then I kind of moved away from it. And
yeah, I just find him the fact he's only a one caster and he's in the army as a super caster, it's like, what's he doing? Like, he's a bit of a nothing. The fact that his snuff candle, if you actually roll your death save against it, he doesn't get the bonus +3 to cast. So, I don't know. If you want him in your list to cast, say, Cogs, yes, take him. But then that's a pretty big investment to have him and Cogs in your list for getting +2 to run and charge. I don't think it's really worth it.
Well, and then your opponent can take advantage.
Exactly. Yeah.
My first Adepticon experience was someone bringing Reikener for that Cogs, and I just like laughed at them with my base 100 skeleton, Legions of Nagash army. I wasn't even running Grimghast Reapers. I'm just like, I'm about to show you what 80 skeletons can do against 60 Grimghast Reapers because you just gave me +2 to charge you. Like,
and move. It's, right, like Reikener, if you take Shroud Guard, you could take him as in the Shroud Guard, but I don't know. I just feel that he's a bit of a nothing character. He's not really fulfilling a certain spot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have role-playing power.
Yeah, I think if you want to take a caster, you take Olander. She's 30 points more, and you're getting 2 casts, and you're getting way more mortal wound
utility output. And just what she's doing on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Reikener, he's just a bit of a, I don't know. He's in an odd spot for me, for my liking. If he was a double caster, yes, he'd be a lot better. But
yeah. But doesn't the model look sick?
It does. Yeah, he's a cool. He's a cool model. Like he's not. He's being able to snipe a model is really good. But it requires you being within 12 inches at the hero phase.
Which is tough. That means you're already on second turn or third turn, and
it's you're mainly sniping out models out of battle line units or something anyway, or like stuff that's got a banner or whatever. Like you're not going to be using it in your first 1 or 2 hero phases if you get alpha strike by a unit of cavalry or whatever it is. Like I just find it's not that great. Yep.
All right. So I've got the super hard question to ask you, and Chad can see it right now. Nighthaunt dice, competitive or not?
Why?
You can't remember the Nighthaunt dice? The solid blue cubes, and they glow in the dark, and then they've got a skull.
Oh!
Yeah. What's your Nighthaunt dice take?
I don't have any. I don't use it.
And you call yourself... Look, hang on, real quick here. I've got
the little blue one. Yeah, no, I don't have those.
No, those are my OBR dice. And then I've got my crazy-ass, Halloween dice. And I've got my Malign Portents dice. But the just random-ass blue dice. I feel like Nighthaunt dice game was not to par. I've seen some horrible... Like, Sylvaneth got dice made out of wood. Squig's got bouncy-ass dice. We just got blue dice that glow in the dark.
Tribes have just got these big boulders.
This huge, No, I think dice game on Nighthaunt. I want to redo GW. You heard it right here.
It's a bit like Idneth dice. They were terrible as well.
Yeah,
I've got some of those.
Yeah,
they're horrible.
Yeah, so that was the real hot take of the evening. Is the dice joke?
The dice I didn't even remember.
See that's just goes to the muddled release of this thing. They forgot that there was Nighthaunt dice even. Like they were just it was a solid blue cubes with like white pips, and then they had an hourglass on the 6 and a skull on the 1.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it was just you didn't even think about this, did you?
No, I didn't. I bought all the War Scroll cards. I've even got the limited edition.
Oh, look at that! Look at that nasty. Oh, the sick nasty. Look at that. That's beautiful.
I went all out, but obviously those dice. I saw the dice. I'm like, nah, not getting those. They look shit.
At least make them look like shit in the like horrible way the Ossiarch Bone Reapers dice. Look at this. You can't even tell. There's no pips. It's just fucking middle
That's why
fingers.
you gotta sit there and try and count how many fingers on each dice.
Yeah.
No way.
Gross. They're not the worst
Yeah.
dice we've ever got. All right, man.
No.
I have loved this episode. I thank you so much for being on. Is there any lasting points? Any things you want to say about Nighthaunt? The like a summary statement.
Oh, look, I just think most of all, enjoy the army. Don't get disheartened if you're losing. The biggest thing is don't take this army thinking it's going to be a feck. Like you're not gonna rock up to a table and just obliterate your opponent.
There are no auto wins here. Here.
It's not the way. This army's an objective army. You gotta play the objectives to win. I think that, look, just have fun with the army. Enjoy the hobby side of it. It's a really beautiful looking army. I'm just putting Bluey on for him. Just enjoy the army.
Hey, Bluey. My kids just got into Bluey. My kids just got into Bluey like last week because it just showed up on like I don't know if it's Disney Plus or Hulu or wherever it just showed up, and like I have never heard my kids laugh so hard. And then like Molly, my partner, she's sitting in there watching it with it, and then every now and then she like gives these like huge gut laughs, and I just like walk in, I'm like, what just happened? And she's just like, I hate this show, but I can't stop laughing, and I'm like what is like?
It's just typical Australian humor. There's so many adult jokes in it that kids don't even understand, and like I watch it with the kids and I laugh at it myself.
It's the irreverent humor. There's this like weird irreverence moment where you're just like sitting there and like the dad or whatever gets mad because the episode I saw they were like and just the whole episode was they were in a car. The whole episode where they're just like in a car, and I'm like, why am I laughing right now? Because like I would be super annoyed right now. I just think it's like crystallized like parrot humor, and then they just like turn it a little like 80 degrees to the side so the kids get it.
And then you're just watching it and you're just like, this actually happens though. Like it's one of those shows like, yes, this happens. This is real life. Like
the cartoon meta Bluey S tier, right? SpongeBob probably S tier. But summary thoughts on Nighthaunt.
I think pretty much what I've said, man. Look, honestly, once you get to know this army and you learn all its nuances and how everything works, it's definitely a competitive army. Like I can honestly tell you, it's competitive.
As a Masters winning player who played, go ahead.
Like I can see this being. I think if more people played the book and more better players played it, you would be seeing this in the top meta, like the top finishers. Sorry, like I don't see it. I think it's definitely up there. I look at this book and I like, you know how you look at some books and you're like, there's really hard counters to that. Like you could see that book losing to this army, to that army, blah blah blah. I look at Nighthaunt, I'm like, there's probably only maybe, as I've said earlier, Zinch and that are a really hard counter. But apart from that, I'm like, everything else, I don't see a hard counter to this. Like, if you play well, you can beat that army. If you play well, you can beat that army. Like, I can see you beating any army with this book almost. I just think it's a really well-rounded book.
I'm there with you. I think this is like one of the ultimate underdogs of death. Flesh Eater Courts I think is like kind of reached an equilibrium of like it's actually like still strong. Pardon me. It's got like that puncher's chance of like you can throw it in your bad matchup and like sometimes just 25 mortal wounds off your Terrorgeist will just swing the game. But like you're relying on the puncher's chance. You want to like go okay, like you rack up and you go I lose this matchup, but if I have dice or I do the thing, that's where Flesh Eater Courts like kind of falls in for me. With Nighthaunt, I'm like, I feel like the games are in your control. Like this isn't a puncher's chance. You're not relying on the if I get lucky I win. You're just going, if I play the table really well and I juke my opponent mentally, I can take this. And that's true for most matchups. I think Nighthaunt is just I mentioned it before, it's just in this fog of weird release, and people never looked at it it was released as a new player army
it is not a new player army. It is a high skill curve army. Yeah, no, this is not a new player army. This is a high skill floor army. You have to get into the nuances of the game. You have to like play some mental AOS. Like you have to like be thinking and outthinking some 3D chess stuff like that. And I feel like that sort of like mislaunch of the army kind of just started a spiral of people not giving it the proper chance it deserved. I watched Relian from our local scene go 4-1, like he was in contention for winning a tournament, a 50-person tournament, like just with Nighthaunt when they were the most maligned they have ever been.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. Like this army is shit. It has no chance, so on and so forth. He goes 4-1 with it, like, and he's a game out of winning the whole thing against another fantastic player of our entire scene. Like Nighthaunt, if you put in the care, you put in the time, like the models are great. They're some of the most. I talk about how much I think IDK models are like just a sort of a next tier of like sculpt and like the way they have their poses and postures and stuff like that. Nighthaunt models, there is no wasted effort at all across their whole range. They all, from Reikener to Olander to a itty bitty chain rasp to a Grimghast Reaper to a Bladegeist Revenant, like there is no wasted effort in their sculpts. They nailed it.
The only sort of ones that are probably not as good as the older sculpts, like your Hex Rays and your
Hex Rays, yeah.
But even saying that, they're still not too bad. Like they're not terrible. All the new, as you say, the new line, they're beautiful. Like the Black Coach, that's probably my favorite model.
100%. 100%. I mean, the only takeaway point I have for it is like they don't feel like they leave a bunch up to kit bashing and conversions because they're like essentially monoposes and stuff.
And they're quite thin plastic too. Like there's very little workability with a lot of their plastic because it's so skinny and thin, and I have seen a few kit bashes, but it doesn't land it well.
Yeah, that's my biggest criticism of them is like it's really difficult to like mold them and sculpt them to your whim of your vision of your army because you Nighthaunt, but like your high. Like the high end of what like the model is that you kind of buy into is like already like freaking great. So like if you're already on that like I want to be spooky ghosts, boom, you spooky ghosts. You don't need to convert a whole bunch. And if you already just don't do, a airbrush like two-tone, like I think most people appreciate your hobby because there is a great deal of detail. Like you look at like the like little metal masks and the extra details that they've added onto it. Like you can put a lot of extra technique into it if you're not going in with that like two airbrush and then like call it a good. So I love this army. I think it's great.
And I think the army, it's actually at a turning point right now. Like it's in a really good spot because of Mortal Realms subscription. There's going to be a huge influx of Nighthaunt players in the next 6 to 12 months. Like in the next 6 months, I reckon. And I think we're already seeing it on the Nighthaunt page. There's a lot more new players that have said, I've signed up to Mortal Realms. I'm getting all this Nighthaunt stuff. So I think it's in a good spot for shows like this, and even like the tactics show I've been doing for people to watch and like especially because there'll be new players being Mortal Realms subscriptions. I'm guessing most of them will be new players, so it's sort of in a good spot right now to be pushing these sorts of shows and helping people out because I think there'll be a big influx of new Nighthaunt players.
This is where I love the Australian meta because something I preach so hard is to like commit to your army and play it for long term. Like, you might not have the most forgiving games early on with Nighthaunt because it is a high skill floor army. This is the I think the biggest disservice played to this army was like this is a start collecting army. Like this is a get in on like you buy it with your Evocator friend buddy and you're just gonna get crushed. And Evocator's already been great for them. Like that was like I think that was just like the big back heel moment for the army and just like it never caught its stride early. That maybe I'm being a conspiracy theorist. I don't know, but
I'm great. Yeah,
it's just like this. I feel like this army didn't get the fair shake. If you go into like Sons of Behemoth right now, the whole thing is like there's no extra stuff. There's no tricks. It's just learn your fundamentals. Learn your fundamentals. Play the fundamentals. A game of Age of Sigmar. That's Sons of Behemoth. And I'm like, cool. Like, you've advertised it correctly to people who want to get in on that. Like, learn your fundamentals. Nighthaunt didn't, like, come out like that. There was nothing like that to, like...
So you they've really upped their game. Like, so I think I remember before Nighthaunt came out, I think there was a couple of videos of maybe, like, a bit of wispy smoke or something, but that was about it. Like, there wasn't... You know, they tried to keep it really secret, I think, and I think it didn't really work for them. I think there wasn't enough hype build up around it. I don't know. I think they're doing a lot better job these days of 100%. Hyping armies up.
100%.
Yeah. And they do it for a couple of months too. Like it's not just a week before. They're you know.
At some point, you know what you're buying into. You know, like you're like like I don't know. I think Nighthaunt Army got done dirty. And I think that they're way better than you think they are. I think that they've got some stuff. You gotta love this army. You gotta play it well. This is what Australia does really well, I think, in terms of your meta, is like you have people playing armies they love, which means they've explored the sort of like the ins and outs of their armies, and then also they have that sort of next tier of like, look, I know my army is playing from the back foot in this situation, so on, and so they've learned to adapt. Like something I learned early on, like looking at like list analysis, is like I have no idea, looking at Australia meta, because I watch people take these lists that like the math hammer or the whatever optimal, and I'm like, no, they're on a different line of play because they've already gone past the math hammer into the like, what I call the Galapagos, where they just that Galapagos meta of, and I think Nighthaunt is one of those armies that the rest of the world should be afraid of, because it has all of the tools to compete in our current meta, and then some that you don't even like. People haven't adapted to our tactics yet with Nighthaunt. They don't know how to play around our going 15 drop, like half my army's in the underworld. And then like, oh, but like total commit will like defeat you. And I'm like, no. I'll just like honestly drop 15 drops in my deployment and go, this doesn't ruin my battle plan, because everything flies and moves 9 inches. Like, unlike like Stormcast Eternals, where like a total commitment would like ruin your whole tournament weekend. No. Like, I don't get to mind game you as hard, but I'm still gonna mind game you. I'm still gonna go like, like here's these 10 blocks, and I don't know.
Well, that tournament coming up in Canberra, it's got total commitment as one of the battle plans, which I'm not looking forward to. But in saying that, I played a tournament a few months ago on TTS that with my Nighthaunt had total commitment, and I beat Seraphon in total commitment. So it was like, it's doable. It's not hard. Like, it's just another battle plan at the end of the day. Like, they still have, you might come up against another army that has deep striking or something. So, you know, you end up being on the same footing, sort of thing. Like it is what it is.
Right on. And then I know you mentioned a couple times before, but you want to put anything on blast, and certainly hype your own stream, please, or your own channel there on YouTube.
Yeah, look, if anyone wants to watch us playing some battle reports with Nighthaunt, and I've got a tactics show I'm halfway through doing on Borderline Gaming, it's called. Jump on and chuck us a like or subscribe or whatever you want to do. But yeah, from I think a couple of guys in your chat today, they've seen my shows, and I get a lot of positive feedback from them. They enjoy it, especially my battle reports. I try to really sort of go through the decisions I'm making in my games, just to try and help people learn how to play the army. Like I'll really go through what I've done and you know, explain why I've done it, instead of just, I do obviously show rolling the dice and all that stuff too. They're long battle reports, but I try to show the whole game, like, and why I do stuff to help people learn. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's just something I try and do a little bit different. But yeah, if anyone wants to jump on, Borderline Gaming, it's the way to go.
What's his channel? Is Borderline Gaming Elf Joe. Thank you for joining us, man. So Nighthaunt is like one of my like my like I don't know how to describe it. It's like one of those like vicariously great armies. One of those armies like I know my certain proclivities. Is like I like skeletons at the end of the day, so I always still want to play skeletons. But like, I just wish more people would play this army because I look at it and it's so good. It's so good. At all the metrics I measure on like what gives you, like this is the. If you like me for my Beasts of Chaos content, this is the better than Beasts of Chaos version of death. Like they have all the tools and there's no gimmicks and there's really no weakness here when it comes right down to it. Like because they can buy their redundancy they need to compensate for the weakness. They have the bodies to screen. They have the hide the stuff off the table. They have the tricks. They have the regen, and they're not as pillow-fisted as you think, which is why I kept kind of coming back to the pillow-fisted thing and having you tell me I was wrong. Like, it's a good army. It's just a hard army to play, and that's it. Is like it's a hard army to play, and this is the returns on your investment. You got to put in the effort. You got to play it to get the returns back because there's a little bit more to this army than meets the eye, and it comes down to you're actually allowed to play the game of Age of Sigmar with your opponent, and that is its greatest strength for me.
Yes. Yeah. No, totally agree.
All right, man.
Yeah, we're done now.
Nah, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Thanks for almost. You might have the high score for the season so far at 3 hours and 5 minutes. So
it's been a long chat. No, thank you, man. It's been good.
Yeah,
I love talking Nighthaunt, so
yeah.
love talking.
Yeah. Let me know if you want me to come on and like commentate over one of your battle plans or your battle reports or something. I'll be like, and here we have them, and I'll go in like golf voice and be like, here we have the Iron Just player moving to church. All right, man.
Very good. All right, man. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the invite and having a chat. So
yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, good night to you. And chat gang, thank you so much for being part of the show tonight. You are the reason we do this thing. You are the show within the show. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes. We'll see you later. And good night, Matt.
Thanks, man. I'll catch you later.